Musa finds Dean again along that left side. Nobody's going to touch him. And into the end zone. Second score for Dean. 53 yards. Touchdown, Rattlers.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
4 receivers on here on 3rd and 10. Morton all kinds of time to the end zone. And a touchdown hauled in by Loic Fungi.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Schlee's going to run it again, and the speed of Colin Schlee down the sideline to the 15 and all the way inside the 10. Finally tackled by Shea Oladipo to save a touchdown. For now, it's going to be 1st and goal, UCLA.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Hunt sheds 2 tackles. Are you serious with this guy? He's in again. His 5th touchdown today. Ricky Hunt going nuts in Myrtle Beach.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
4th and what feels like the ball game. Here's the blitz. Webb downfield, touchdown, Harry Carter. And now the question, do you kick or do you go for the lead?
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Mikey Keene, 12 for 12. Passing goes to the end zone. A laser caught by Jalen Gill for a touchdown. How about Mikey Keene? He can't miss.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
It is a busy week in college football, so that's not breaking news because it is every single day. The transfer portal, Baylor finally with a little momentum. In fact, 3 different players have committed to transfer to Baylor, and also a couple of those. In fact, last week, remember a junior college linebacker in KT Thomas, and a note about him in just a moment. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, I'm David Smoak. Garrett Ross runs the mothership. National Signing Day around the corner. Texas with a large haul, with what they're doing. Jalen Daniels opts out of a bowl game. A lot of things to get to, and here we go. We start with Baylor finding another quarterback for the quarterback room for Jake Spavital, including, this was the odds last week on Dequan Finn and where he might end up when he entered the portal out of Toledo. Those were the teams that were, according to Vegas, Dequan Finn's leaders in the clubhouse. He ended up with Baylor. Now, some of them have their quarterback. Some of them still looking for their quarterback, but Baylor went from not on the list to landing him yesterday evening when all that came down.
I don't know if he even visited any of those other places that were on the list. I don't know where else he went, but this is a huge get for Baylor to get a quarterback with some experience, someone who in a system like Jake Spavital's could really do well. They've got a couple of those transfers today, but they need to now go to work on making sure he is protected up front so that they can keep him healthy all year long and making the plays they expect him to make.
Yeah, it's big news for them. Right with signing day coming up, they didn't have a whole lot of momentum going on these last few days in comparison to, let's say, a TCU or a Texas who are red hot right now in the portal and just in the build-up to signing day. So they really needed to kind of have something break and fall their way. And certainly with the Malik Murphy rescheduling and just the vacancy there at quarterback and Blake Shapen having already moved on, I mean, something really needed to give at the quarterback spot to give you some confidence in that room and give you some confidence in kind of the direction. And he seemed to be the logical guy, especially after Malik Murphy's rescheduling, which who knows if that ever gets rescheduled to where he visits Waco. At this point, doesn't seem like he probably would. It just doesn't make too much sense if he's got other suitors and they now have Dequan Finn in the fold. That's a lot of NIL investment for a starter and then a backup quarterback when you've already got Sawyer Robertson. So I don't know whatever becomes of that, but doesn't so much matter as much now because they got Finn, and that was clearly their top target or the guy that they were heavily after whenever he entered the portal, and excited to see what he can do in Jake Spavital's offense. Be good competition for Sawyer Robertson, who needs some competition, who needs a veteran to help push him and help him grow as well. And, obviously I don't know what to make of the Vegas stuff. It sounds like just throwing stuff out there, quite frankly, and probably having enough gullible people to bet on something like that, because I don't know that he was even whispered to have even been involved with half the teams on that list. So beats me there, but I mean, a good get for Dave Aranda and company, and they desperately need some good news sprinkled in throughout these next few weeks, and so that's a big piece right there.
I haven't seen this, but Timothy Keel, appreciate you. Timothy Malik Murphy visiting Louisville, which, of course, is Teddy Bridgewater, among what others who have been to Louisville. Baylor also received a verbal commitment from safety Cameron Jenkins, Caden's brother, who's at UNLV, and nose tackle Tonga Lolahea. He is a nose tackle who's at Tyler Junior College. So with Thomas, and we're going to get to all the other schools. Ole Miss loaded up over the last few days, among others. Those three players in the last less than 24 hours as they get. So I think the Baylor fan base, Paul, needed something like this. Also, there's news on the coaching staff front. We'll get to that in a moment. But I think they just needed not just names, but players who are going to help this football team. Or at least they hope so.
Well, and look, Dequan Finn was the one that they really needed. Getting other transfers and getting the guys that they have so far has been great. Especially, look, I'm all for when you get a big defensive or offensive lineman from ULIS Trinity. That usually works out. Usually works out. One of those big Tongans that comes in. And so, yeah, absolutely go for that. Like that's one of those things under the radar. I also like that they're using JUCO. I think that's because of the transfer portal. It feels like it's been forgotten a little bit.
The JUCO players?
Yeah. A lot of really good players come out of JUCO ball that may have been overlooked now because you're looking at guys like, oh, this guy was at Auburn. We better go get him. Well, maybe the JUCO guy might be better than the guy who's not working out at Auburn. Just my opinion. But they did need some good news. Look, they love Caden Jenkins, right? And now they have his twin brother in fold. So, the double mint gum of the secondary sounds pretty awesome to me if I'm a Baylor fan. And then if you can keep getting guys out of the portal, especially if you get bigger guys out of the portal and those guys up front, that is going to help you win. I do think that Jake Spavital is the key here. I don't think that if they don't have a coordinator like Jake Spavital, they get a quarterback like Dequan Finn. And, you can look at his record with quarterbacks. Like, he puts up numbers. He's put guys in the league. So this is someone who's going to be wherever he is, regardless of what's happened at that school in years previous. You're going to say, well, I bet you he's going to get me some numbers.
Yeah. Craig, as far as all of them combined, how much do you feel like the feel good? Just like when the coaching staff started to fill up a little bit, and now there's an opening again, but what that meant to get a few of these names, especially the fact that they were able to get them over the weekend when they hosted players, especially with Dequan Finn.
Finn's a big get, as we just talked about. I think that he brings a nice dual threat nature to the position that they haven't had for some time. I mean, Blake Shapen was basically no threat to run the football. I mean, he might have had a scramble here and there, but he was basically a statue in the pocket. And when he got loose, it was slow motion and it was off balance, and it wasn't the type of a runner that you could see come next year with Dequan Finn. So I think that's exciting and an element that they haven't had since Gary Bohannon was here probably about 3 years ago. And Gary Bohannon wasn't some great runner, don't get me wrong, but he was solid enough to be able to get you in the end zone on occasion. And Shapen could do that from time to time, but it was just few and far between, and maybe his numbers were just skewed by all the sack yardage. I don't know. But Dequan Finn's a guy who runs for over 500 yards and has multiple touchdowns pretty much every single season. That's not something that you've had, like I said, for quite a while now. So, again, it's a big commit. They have their quarterback. They have their transfer player that is the big piece to hopefully unlock the rest of what's to come here over the next few weeks and help shape up next season. But he and Sawyer Robertson will be a nice duel along with R.J. Martinez and the springtime, and we'll see Nate Bennett come along as well at some point. But they needed this to not only have kind of a stopgap and let Robertson continue to mature, but just have competition in that room. And then when it comes to Cameron Jenkins, I mean, obviously there's an in there with his brother Caden. I saw Caden Jenkins, who was a guy that they had to hold on to and will have to probably hold on to every year that he's on campus. He's obviously excited about being able to play with his brother who's been at UNLV. So, I mean, that's a position as well, or just a grouping there in the secondary, but at safety where they definitely need a lot of help. They were not very good at the safety spot and most places on the defense this past season. So you needed an upgrade there. And you've got plenty of familiarity that also hopefully makes your young burgeoning star and Caden Jenkins happy, and who will be playing alongside his brother now in that secondary. And, then as you pointed out, you also go JUCO for Tonga Simeone Lola Hea, and I might be pronouncing that somewhat wrong. Give me some time on that. But, he seems to have the size and comes from a program that's had a lot of success here with TJC over the last few years. And as Paul pointed out, maybe once in a while, JUCO's the way to go, as opposed to just going and grabbing the guy from whatever school A, B, or C in the transfer portal. So, they produce talent. There's a lot of good JUCO players out there, and they need help up front. So, I mean, all of these, give them some nice dose of positive news in, a few days stretch where there hasn't been a whole lot to talk about.
Well, and there may be more. Who knows what still might happen. Jenkins had 32 tackles, no picks or anything like that when he was at UNLV, but he's also just a freshman coming out of where his brother was as well, and a nice, really good freshman All-American year for Caden. Now, let's go to Drake Dabney news. This was a gut punch when he decided to leave because he was really a good weapon in many ways, but then Drake Dabney announces he's going to TCU, it's the arch rival for Baylor. So this one was kind of a gut punch. Good luck to Drake, and he's a heck of a player. Good luck to him, but this one probably hurt a little bit.
Oh, that's salt on a wound right there. I mean, you're already losing one of your better players. Now, look, in the new offense, I would assume that the tight ends aren't going to catch as many passes as they would have in the old one.
But Spavital did mention, did he not, that there was a tight end or two he thought he could line up outside, and I'm sure that Dabney might have been one of them.
Yeah, but, and so he's in the portal. He's going to, an offense that I'm kind of surprised. Now, they had Jared Wiley and he caught some passes, but look, if you want to be a tight end and catch passes in an offense, going to play it, Kendall Briles' offense is not the one. Now, they use the tight ends really brilliantly in the Briles offense, but not for catching passes. Quite often, they are running rub routes and semi-legal picks and all these other things very brilliantly, but it's not a place you're going to go and get volume. Although when you see a guy like Jared Wiley and the red zone targets he got over his career, it's probably not hard to go, okay, well they're going to produce there. So we'll see. I mean, I'm sure he's going to work out, but it is surprising to me, like if you're going to leave one offense because you're like, well, this is not as tight end friendly, you're going to one that at least empirically is less tight end friendly.
Yeah, I think that's maybe what they used to be, though. Look at Jared Wiley's numbers. I mean, they're nearly identical to Drake Dabney's. I mean, he's got 500-something yards. He's got dozens of catches, multiple touchdowns. So, I know when Jordan Iver was around or some of the other tight ends that followed that it wasn't a major focus because you had Corey Coleman and you had Antoine Goodley, and you had all these great receivers and great running backs, and you didn't have to have a tight end that was a star player or a big part of the mix for you. But Jared Wiley was a huge part of what TCU did this year. I mean, a massive part of what they did.
Baylor,
so that's a spot where, it just goes to show you that these players don't care so much about the rivalries and the blood feuds and things like that as much as people like us in the media or fans out there seem to care about those types of things. A guy jumps from A&M to Texas or from Alabama to Georgia or from Baylor to TCU, and it's, just part of the deal nowadays. But, yeah, Wiley leaves big shoes. I know it hasn't necessarily been that way in the past, but it was this past year, and I'm sure that was part of the selling point for Drake Dabney was look at all these catches, look at all these touchdowns, look at all these yards that we just had with Jared Wiley that are suddenly gone. And quite frankly, there's nobody that's just set up to be the successor. So now, Dabney in so many ways will be that. And I think it's a really good get for TCU. They're celebrating. They've, added like a billion guys in the portal already. That's fun. It doesn't guarantee anything, however. I mean, we did this last year with Baylor. Guy after guy after guy, and it made absolutely no difference in the long run whatsoever. They were actually worse this year. So, last year with TCU, oh, man, they got JoJo Earl, and they got all these guys from Alabama, and they got, and did it matter? Not really. So, it's that time of year where there's a lot of celebrating going on for every team out there, and you don't really know until months after the fact, like, what actually is what. But right now, TCU's cooking, and they're seeming to pick up a lot of really good players, and Drake Dabney is a really good player, and I think he'll have success there. But it's a, big loss for Baylor. I'm not sure, how it would have factored into Spavital's offense, as y'all said. Maybe it's not that big a deal in the long run, but, certainly a good get for TCU that'll help them offset the Wiley loss, and they'll run into each other. They'll play Dabney next year, so we'll see how that goes.
All right, Texas had themselves a quite, 24 to 36 hours, and they're not done because they flipped that five-star defensive back who was committed to Florida today. But also Matthew Golden. This is like Xavier-worthy replacement here. In fact, he would play anywhere. Matthew Golden, a dynamic kick returner and also a fantastic wide receiver, has decided from Houston. We knew he was in the portal. There was immediate smoke about UT. He goes there. Plus, they also received a commitment from Clemson safety Andrew Makuba. And he's a guy that put up a bunch of numbers at Clemson. So they get the commit from Florida to flip Makuba, and also, Matthew Golden's an offensive and special teams weapon. Yeah. Pretty darn good 36 hours.
Andrew Makuba played at Austin LBJ, so he's a native. He's a dude who will absolutely saw you in half, and he's very athletic. He's played corner and safety. I think he's probably more of a safety now. Someone who I thought, if he was in the NFL draft this year, would be a 4th or 5th round pick probably, but to go and play in Pete Kwiatkowski's system, which is really good, leaving Clemson's defense is a bold jump. I mean, if you're going to leave Clemson, and defensively was not their problem this year, but if you're going to leave Clemson's defense, you're going to go play for one that you can win with, and I and obviously make some money because he's at Texas. But yeah, that's a huge move for them. Matthew Golden. Last year Dana Holgerson had mentioned that he had people contacting him and trying to get him out. So you kind of felt like it was only a matter of time before that happened. And then as soon as he's in the portal, it was almost like, well, this is a Texas guy, right? Unless he had come out and been like, listen, I'll go anywhere, but I hate the University of Texas. I'm not going there, which obviously nobody's really going to do. So not a surprise to see him there. He's going to be a nice fit for them.
Yeah, I mean, they're just shooting fish in a barrel right now, and, you've got the playoff run still to come, and you can hate it all you want to, but it is what it is. Sark's got them cooking, and they're, red hot right now. And today, in the last 24 hours, huge haul. Matthew Golden, I guess that was either yesterday or Saturday, whenever that became official. I mean, yeah, the writing was on the wall there. The writing was on the wall the moment he entered the transfer portal, so I don't know what all was going on behind the scenes or terms of what the conversations were like, but that was pretty obvious that was going to be the outcome there, and I don't know that it ever even really scraped the surface of speculation even anywhere else, even another school being named. I mean, maybe originally when he jumped in the portal, but it just seemed like he was 100% Texas the moment that became a thing that was going to happen. So they're going to probably lose some a large portion of their receivers. I mean, depends. What is Adonai Mitchell going to do? I don't really know. Xavier Worthy, though, seems like he's a foregone conclusion to be gone. So Golden will certainly help there and help on special teams as well. I mean, as much on special teams as he will on offense, I'm sure, immediately. So, yeah, really, really huge get for them. And then you mentioned Makumba, and that's obviously a guy coming home from a big-time program. 5-star type of talent in an area of need there in the secondary. If you point to where they probably have any types of weaknesses moving into this playoff or just in general, and for a program that's been as strong as really anybody in the secondary, that is still probably where you would point. And they're going to lose some guys from back there as well. So to go ahead and start reloading there with Makumba, and then to now flip a 5-star safety from Florida is a 5-star safety, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just massive. So, yeah, it's been a good, weekend for Texas football, and they still got a lot of things in front of them here in the next few weeks that could just continue to build and build and build their momentum into the SEC.
Makuba was a safety, moved a corner in 2022. That was kind of a learn by on the fly type of thing, and then he got back to safety. There's a Khalil Barnes that Clemson likes at safety also that got into the rotation, but Makuba going back home, as Paul said, played at LBJ High School. Let's go to Malachi Nelson. At one point, the number 1 rated player in the country at quarterback. USC has not had a great couple of 3 or 4 days. They also have Damani Jackson, a defensive back who's entered the portal, another highly ranked player. But Malachi Nelson, remember Caleb Williams going on to the pros. They're entertaining Will Howard. I don't think that's official yet. And you wonder if Moss is this quarterback for the bowl game. And I even asked, where's Malachi Nelson? And now we know he's in the transfer portal.
Well, he spent a lot of the year injured as well. And this is kind of, I have a lot of questions about this because, yes, you might bring in a veteran like Will Howard, but I don't know. If I'm Malachi Nelson, there's not going to be many places I can go that I'm going to have the quarterback coach that I'm going to have in Lincoln Riley, and Cliff Kingsbury still there right now. I mean, all these things that you have at your disposal there. I'm just very curious about how this went down and why Malachi Nelson thought it might be any different than it was. But this is kind of how it goes now. I mean, Dante Moore's in the portal too. He was one of the other top quarterbacks last year. Several guys who are 4 or 5 star quarterbacks have been, freshmen. Aiden Childs left Oregon State, followed his coach. So it's not that unusual. This one just surprises me because if I'm a quarterback, I'm not necessarily leaving Lincoln Riley unless he tells me to.
He was committed to Oklahoma, right? And then when Riley left for USC, decided to go play for USC. Craig, you know a lot about him because he was an OU commit, but we don't know a lot about him because we haven't seen him much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot about him, just outside of his recruitment. I didn't, study him in particular just because he was committed to OU at one point, and plus that was, forever ago at this stage. I'm sure the boards of Troy will have a lot more information and more of the details on exactly what went wrong here, why, he's now on the move outside of the fact that he's just not going to see playing time, it appears, for a while longer. I mean, that alone is reason for guys to go jump in the portal, especially quarterbacks. This is part of the industry now. This is part of just the quarterback position in college football is you get playing time or you don't, and if you don't, you move on, and in many cases, you move on for good money somewhere else. So interested to see what the market looks like for Malachi Nelson, but a really highly rated and well thought of quarterback just a couple years ago, who for one reason or another got lost in the lost in translation there in Los Angeles when it comes to seeing the field. So I'm curious to learn more, and now it's a big time former prospect that's in the portal, so we'll see again what the attention is like for him and for everybody else that's still hanging around there in the portal, as Dequan Finn became one of those chess pieces to come off the board, but there's still a lot of others, and it ranges from veteran guys, who most of those guys have now pledged, to these young cats that we've seen very little of it, but have that former 5 or 4 star ranking that's super enticing for coaches who are in need. So, that's a big name that hasn't proven anything just yet, but I'm sure there will be plenty of interest.
Just a couple of notes, and we need to can we run that Chip Kelly audio?
We have the audio. Emery's trying to get the video for us, but we have the video?
I have the video as well.
Okay, can we run? I want to run it in the next segment. We'll break this segment. We'll break again. Justin Wells from Inside Texas will talk about the weekend we've mentioned. Kobe Savage, former Tyler Junior College. We mentioned the defensive nose tackle coming to Baylor. He, according to Matt Zenitz, who does a great job with this for 247, is going, or at least appears headed to Oregon. We like Kobe Savage, heck of a player. Was surprised when he entered the portal. And then Cameron Valdez, the running back at Tech who was going to leave, has decided to get back out of the portal. And there's other notes on Tech, too, that they've had a nice 3 or 4 days. Oh, and by the way, beating Cal in the bowl game. But
didn't start out looking like they were going to.
It sounded like it looked like they were asleep at the wheel, and then all of a sudden the defense stepped up, and they just had too much. Baron Morton was fantastic. But Kobe Savage headed to what appears to be Oregon, that from Matt Zenitz. All right, now, Chip Kelly. Did you watch it?
Oh, yeah.
Craig, did you watch it? Listen to it.
Yeah, I saw it.
Garrett, did you get the chance to listen to it?
Yeah, I've watched it.
You want to do it here, or do you want to do a break and then come back with it?
Let's do a break and come back.
All right, we'll do a break, come back with Chip Kelly. who put everything in perspective, and there's a lot more to get to, including the Ole Miss portal. They're killing it. We'll have Neil McCready on tomorrow, who covers Ole Miss, but we'll still mention them. A note about Jaden Daniels, the Heisman Trophy winner, and much, much more. But coming up next, Chip Kelly put all of this together, and it made as much sense as anything I've heard from anybody, with all due respect. That's next. This is 365 Sports.
Don't miss the Wrap Up the Year sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. As the year comes to a close, we're offering unbeatable deals and a wide selection of new 2023 Jeep models like the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Gladiator, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4XE. In addition to incredible savings, we're also offering generous trade-in values for your current vehicle. Upgrade to a newer model while getting the most out of your trade-in. Hurry in, these deals won't last long. Shop our great selection of new inventory and start the new year in style.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs, too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
We'll have news on one of the best quarterbacks in America staying for another year. We'll do that for you in just a moment. But over the weekend, UCLA's Chip Kelly, you kind of have heard Jim Harbaugh talk about players getting equal revenue based on the revenues being produced in college football, and others have said that. Others have just said, man, there's got to be a way to change up the schedule. Paul and Craig, you guys have mentioned a lot about how everything seems to run together. I have too. But listen to this. This is UCLA's Chip Kelly on all that's going on right now in college football and how he would, at least if he had a chance, to kind of put things in perspective of what he would do.
You said that you might have some ideas. I know that picking one to attack in college football is almost impossible because there's so many. But what is the biggest issue that you might have right now, whether it be realignment, NIL, transfer portal, and what would your plan maybe be to try to solve it?
I think they're all a problem, and I think we need to have a conference commissioner. I think football should be separate from the other sports. Just the fact that our school is leaving to go to the Big Ten in football, our softball team should be playing Arizona in softball. Our basketball team should be playing Arizona in basketball. But because football left, and they're saying, well, how do you do that? Well, Notre Dame's independent in football, and they're in a conference and everything else. I think we should all be independent in football. And you can have a 64-team conference that's in the Power 5, and you can have a 64-team conference in the Group of 5. And we separate it, and we play each other. You can have the West Coast teams, and then every year we play 7 games against the West Coast teams, and then we play the East. So we play Syracuse, Boston College, Pitt, West Virginia, Virginia. Then the next year you play against the South while you still play your 7 teams. You can play a 7-game schedule. You can play 4 against another conference, another division opponent, and you can always play against one Mountain West team every year so that we can still keep those rivalries going. Not that I've really thought about this. Not that I've a lot of spent time on this. But I think if you went together collectively as a group and said there's 132 teams and we all share the same TV contract, so that the Mountain West doesn't have one and the Sun Belt doesn't have another and SEC has one and they have another, that we all go together, that's a lot of games, and there's a lot of people in the TV world that would go through it. You can sponsor each one. Instead of calling it Group of 5 and Power 5, you can call it Amazon, Nike, bid that out to things. You can do a lot of different things. But I think if we still do the same thing and take all that money, and I would do this, and I think this needs to be done, that money now needs to be shared with the student athletes, and there needs to be revenue sharing, and the players should get paid, and you can get rid of NLI, and the schools should be paying the players because the players are what the product is. And the fact that they don't get paid is really the biggest travesty. Not that I've thought about it.
That's UCLA's Chip Kelly, and I mean, you would wonder why not get like 10 ADs, 10 presidents, 10 student athletes or whoever in one room and don't let them leave until they figure it out. But a lot of that made sense. Whether it's feasible, whether it can be done, I don't know. But there was nothing that he said that didn't make sense to me.
No, it all makes a lot of sense. The problem is that to do that, you have to get 2 very large entities in particular that made those deals independent of the other conferences to agree to such a thing. And that is probably something that is way off in the future because, there's just so much money running to the Big Ten and the SEC, and they're not just going to go like, you know what? Let's share this money with everybody because it's better for everybody, because that's not their overall goal. Their overall goal is to help themselves and not the overall sport of college football. Whatever happens in their wake has not been considered. And that's where the rubber meets the road on this. But revenue sharing is going to happen. It's going to happen. Otherwise, none of this can be sustained. I mean, because they're going to run up into a huge problem anyway, because eventually – they will figure out a way to unionize college athletes, and they will figure out a way to do those things. And if the NCAA is not revenue sharing or working towards it, then they're just going to be screwed again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's saying anything that's exactly brand new opinion-wise. I think this has been a conversation ongoing for quite a while, for at least 2 years, if not longer, every day on social media, every day nearly on talk shows like this. So I think we all understand that this is not the way it is right now going to be the way that it is in the future. I do agree with him just how ridiculous it is that you're not going to see UCLA playing Arizona in conference softball games anymore. We covered that whole pack breakdown extensively because it directly involved the Big 12 and all of that. And, by the end of it, because of some of the vitriol and some of this just a silly elementary name calling from certain people, it made it like a personal thing when it wasn't a personal thing. It was just a matter-of-fact thing that some people refused to believe because they didn't want to believe the truth. And so, therefore, tried to turn it into this nasty thing, but it was just part of the deal. And, when it was all said and done, the dust settled, one side won, so to speak, but did anybody really win in the long run? I mean, is the Big 12 now solidified forever and ever? No. I mean, is the Pac-12 ever going to be the same? No. I mean, there's just so many things that we don't know about the future and what it looks like, but there's been all these little things along the way, and you hope that when one question gets answered, then that'll be enough for a while, but then it's just like 10 other questions pop up right after that. It's like, you go and you get those 4 schools, and all of a sudden it's like, well, what about NIL, and what about TV contracts, and what about, the playoff, and how do you get this, and how do you get that? And there's just question after question on every single aspect of the game, off the field, on the field. in everything that has to do with players. It's a jumbled mess right now, and there seems to be a really clear path forward for certain schools, the bigger ones with the deeper pockets. The ones that seem to be associated with them conference-wise are okay right now, and there's a lot of other schools out there that don't quite know what the future looks like, and it's all big and scary, but I think that the only way to really move forward is, in fact, to, yes, have revenue sharing and to just change some ways that you've been doing things for quite a while now, because the courts have told you that you have to, and also just because it makes sense at this point to stop digging your heels in the sand and realize, like, it's just better for the game now at this point to stop having lawsuits and just move forward and change the game. And so what that looks like on the other end, I don't know, but I would like it to get back to where at some point down the line, it's not going to be immediate, it's not going to probably be soon, but we do go back to more regionality and things that make sense as opposed to conglomerates. And I think you hit the nail on the head of, like, call it the Amazon conference or the Nike conference or whatever you want to, but, like, at least make it make some sense, and let's do it the right way. But, I mean, right now there's the National Labor Relations Board case that's going on, and that's going to be massive when it comes to employee status for players. So we're going to, see that throughout this week and whatever that looks like on the other end. But I think he's just saying a lot of the frustrations that a lot of people have been touched by at one point or another, or in some cases, some fans have dealt with all of that at one point or another. So, yeah, it's a wild scene right now in college athletics. I love college sports. I think that players deserve to get paid. I think the best solution is probably revenue sharing. I understand that not everybody's going to be able to do that to the same extent, but nothing's equal in college sports. It never has been. It's never going to be exactly. And so if that's the best path forward, it's about time to stop resisting and just give into the inevitable and figure out the best way to manage that and keep this as close to what you think it's supposed to be as possible. But losing lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit's not getting you there. So, I hope for a day when we're talking about the simple things, just like what he's talking about, and not more of these court cases. But who knows when that's going to finally come back around and things make sense again.
Couple of notes from Bracket Cat. Funny how UCLA suddenly feels so generous about after bolting for the Big Ten and leaving the pack high and dry. From UT Parking, if revenue sharing with players happens, are they still considered student athletes?
No.
Will they have limits on how many years they can play? I feel like that's a gray area.
The student athlete thing, that's already so electrically charged with people hating that term and feeling like that's just a blanket term to use to not have to consider them employees. And in some ways that is exactly what it is. I do think there are administrators. I do think there's coaches out there who believe in the student athlete and really believe in that and believe in, going to school at college sports. Amazing as that sounds. There are people that believe in getting your degree and it being beneficial for you, believe it or not, despite what the sponsors say or the bowl games say or whatever. There is that part of it, but are you going to be able to intermingle those two for much longer? I don't know. That's the question that everybody's trying to figure out. And I do think there's one side that wants it to be that way, not because they refuse to pay players, they don't want players to get anything, but because they believe in the college side of things as opposed to a pure pro sports minor league model. And there's others that clearly just want to make money and have their NFL light and whatever. And I don't know how all of that gets sorted out or ironed out. I know that cases going on like the one with the NLRB right now in court today is going to be a part of that in deciding fair or unfair labor practices as alleged by the NCPA, the Players Association, against the PAC, against the NCAA, against USC, against UCLA. Those are all named in the lawsuit. So just one of many suits that are going to help clear the air somewhat, but the waters are as muddy as ever.
Mitt Winter is going to join us tomorrow, Craig, on almost everything you brought up in that article. He's an NIL attorney. He is from an attorney from a law firm that has done a lot when it comes to athletics, et cetera, but also in whatever they do practicing law. He'll join us tomorrow. Dan Lust, of course, has been a go-to. Mitt Winter, I kind of saw some of what he has been saying, even about more and more, like every day there's something that piles up. And so he'll join us tomorrow if you're interested in that. Conundrum said that, talking about Chip Kelly and his fat, players don't need to hear from him because Smokey, he's part of the problem with athletes getting paid their fair share. Conundrum doesn't like Chip Kelly, and that's fine. I get what you're saying. But oh boy, NIL attorney, can't wait. We'll have him on. And oh, by the way, these agents, the runners in college football, they're no different than what really has been going on in college basketball for what, years? And I mean, years.
It was going on in college football too. Like, it
years.
just wasn't as pronounced as it was in basketball, and it was very obvious that Uncle Larry was the street agent for, the grassroots. The AAU team and all that messy kind of stuff that basketball was, riddled with and probably still is for all I know. But that's nothing new. I mean, I think the coaches did count their dollars and they were fat and happy, and they might have said that they cared about the players getting paid, but they weren't going to sit there and go force the matter. But now I think that, Chip Kelly and everybody else sees the writing on the wall. I think there's also probably some guys that just mature or grow older or maybe see it differently now and understand that, for one, it's just the answer that you should probably be giving. But also, two, it's just the right thing as well. And I think they all understand that no matter what their opinions are, it's going to happen anyways. So you might as well get out there out in front of it and do what you can to not only show your support, but also try and make sure that, the right decisions are made to try and keep this thing as on the tracks as you possibly can keep it in relation to, player power versus college coaches and just how the whole system's going to operate. I think there is probably some fear in coaches like Kelly who they're not going to go broke because of any changes. They're still going to make their multi-million-dollar contracts, but it is changing the game. We're seeing it's changing it dramatically, and I don't think they even know exactly what it's going to look like. So I think there's probably some fear, and, hey, we better try and control this thing while we can before we have absolutely no chance to ever, grab hold of the horns ever again and try to get any part of this that we want to have happen. So, yeah, it's craziness.
We have to break, but Carson Beck has decided he's coming back for another year. This is not a surprise. The young man had a phenomenal year for Georgia. Of course, they were knocked out by Alabama after the loss in the SEC championship game. Who knows? They might still be the best team in college football, but because of the timing and also because there were so many high-level teams, he's coming back to play for Georgia for one more year.
Yeah, he's a really good player. It's obviously big news for the Dogs that he's going to be back. I don't know how much conversation there was about the alternative, but, that's good news for Georgia that they'll have their guy back in the saddle and see what they can do to try and rebound after what was still a good year by most standards, but obviously a very disappointing year when you don't get that third straight title or even make the playoff to try and win that third straight title and make some history, and you don't even win the SEC either. So, I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of a chip on Kirby Smart and Georgia's shoulders, and that's a good piece to have back for next year.
And, in fact, this one will be legitimate, right, because of some of the ones about lack of respect after winning the first national title and then last year winning it yet again and hammering TCU. When we come back, Justin Wells on UT having their run, National Signing Day coming up on Wednesday, but the transfer portal is busy. And, by the way, they're getting ready for a game against Washington in what is the Sugar Bowl. Also today, Matt Brown will join us on a lot of the converging of so many stories and maybe his thoughts on that. And we'll hear from a Syracuse writer. How about what Fran Brown's already done, getting, of course, the quarterback out of Ohio State, Kyle McCord. Much to get to. And I had a chance to speak for a few minutes today with former Baylor tight ends coach and player Sean Bell. Not on a recording, but just a couple of notes about him. He and his brother now on the staff at Houston with Willie Fritz. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com, two things they do. The two things you'd want. One, they can find out why something inside your body hurts so much, whether it's your shoulder, your back, your knee, your ankle, or even whatever. They have an MRI machine that's state-of-the-art technology. It will find out what's there. And maybe whatever your pain is, the MRI shows that's not it. Like there's nothing torn, whether it's a ligament or a muscle. That's not it. So then your doctor, whether it's an orthopedic surgeon or somebody else, can figure out another diagnosis and possibly a way for therapy and or what you need to get back and healthy again. It will also only cost you $497 or less, because they'll also help you file insurance and perhaps pay less than $497. And the average MRI is $1,100. You can do the math. Find out what hurts so much, and also $497 or less. It's an incredible philosophy and mission statement. Dr. Rob Maxey and his staff, IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas Marketplace, just off I-35 in the south part of Waco.
The right call can make all the difference on and off the field. I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. When it's time for a new car, truck, or SUV, Bird Colgan Ford is the right call. Come check out our award-winning lineup of best-selling models in their class, like the Mustang, Explorer, Expedition, F-150, and Super Duty. Make the right call for your next vehicle at Bird Colgan Ford. Bird Colgan Ford proudly supports Baylor Athletics. Sic 'em Bears.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, is your holiday item superstore. Half spiral hams, 8 to 10 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Pit hams, 12 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Bone-in hams, 18 to 22 pounds for $3.40 per pound. Whole raw turkeys from 12 to 16 pounds for $2.50 a pound. Whole smoked turkeys, that's smoked turkeys at 9 to 12 pounds for $3.75 a pound. And mini pit hams, 6 to 8 pounds for $5.99 a pound. And don't forget, they have full service butcher shop where you can find what you want: pork, poultry, seafood, and beef. And I bring up the beef because big beef tenderloin or a prime rib. Brian Bauer and the Bauer family, full service bakery with fresh baked kolaches every morning and bread and cold beer and wine. Tailgate needs from pellet fuel to charcoal. Waco Custom Marketplace and the holiday items, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Justin Wells, Inside Texas, also does work with On3 Sports. He covers Texas, joins us. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and David Smoak. Justin, we've kind of summarized with Matthew Golden. I think that was almost immediate. The 5-star flip from Florida. And then also Makuba, who made his decision from Clemson, Austin LBJ. And it's not even National Signing Day yet. How much do they have available? Because it seems like they are just adding and adding and adding, and all of it appears to be high-level talent.
The cupboard is getting pretty stocked. There's only a few spots left. I think that they definitely have one spot left open for Jasper linebacker Ty Anthony Smith. He's a Texas A&M commit right now, sideline to sideline, tracks and smacks, just an absolute outstanding a linebacker. Will projects well at the next level, but the spots are filling up, and so there's that big gap from Wednesday until February, a good 6 weeks to where you're going to have a handful of other kids that are still in the mix. A kid like an Alex Foster, the St. Joseph out of Mississippi, the Greenville defensive tackle committed to Baylor. You've got Dominic McKinley down from Acadiana, Louisiana, committed to Texas A&M. There's still some talks there. And then they've also, still in the mix a little bit for a few other players, potentially even Dalen Evans. There's been a little bit of whispers about the Pine Tree kid, a defensive lineman in Texas A&M commit, talking to Texas a little bit. But I'll be honest, if they're able to flip Smith on signing day, I'm not sure there's any more room, Smokey. I think the number at that point would push it to either 24 or 25. And this was going to be a small class anyway, because the first two classes with Sark were absolutely full. And so, yeah, room is running out. But when it comes to the portal, you know, they lost a handful of kids, and so those are basically replacements, so to speak. And I know they're in real big on another big portal kid, UTSA outside linebacker edge, Trey Moore, and that's another one to pay attention to. But for the 2024 cycle, man, it looks like there's only one or two spots left.
How and obviously they'll probably, when the playoff is over and they know who's exactly leaving, you know, if they're going to lose, you know, Mitchell and Worthy and Sanders and guys like that, then they're going to have more spots to fill. But what do you think is the max number of guys they would add in the portal?
Oh, that's a great question, because I honestly think it changes almost daily. You know, portal recruiting is fluid. It's almost like free agency in the NFL. It is. You could have some good info, and 10 minutes later, it could be wrong. And so right now, you know, Matthew Golden is your Xavier Worthy replacement. That's your speed-on-speed guy that can play the outside, real good in the return game. That's kind of that fill in there. McCuden's coming in to fill in for guys like a Jahdae Barron, you know, former Baylor commit, big-time nickel star for Texas. You know, he's going to be able to play both safety spots, but also come down in the box and potentially play some of that star position. And then, you know, Trey Moore is another one that just gets to the quarterback. He's a best player available type. But I think you might see some movement at tight end, because Jatavian Sanders is more than likely going to go play on Sundays in April. And you know, they've got some decent guys on the roster. Gunnar Helm out of Colorado. They have a couple young guys, and Spencer Shannon out of Mater Dei. Will Randall, Arch Manning's teammate down at Isidore Newman. Those were both redshirted this year as freshmen. But I do think they would like to add another tight end. That might be one that you see happen maybe after spring, because you see that rush from the portal in the first 2 weeks, and then you'll see a few more in January. And then I think players go through spring ball to see where they'll be, to see where they're going to be at. Are they going to get the reps? Are they going to be in the rotation? And if they're not, then I think you see another slew of decisions after spring ball. And so for Texas, I don't think there's a whole lot of spots left when it comes to the portal either. I do know that they would like to add another wide receiver. They've got 3 coming in the 2024 cycle, notably Ryan Wingo, 5-star out of St. Louis, who's going to be on campus in a few weeks. But I do think that they would love to add another guy on that outside. And it's not a given that Adonai Mitchell's leaving. Now, you know, Commissioner Wisdom says he's going to go to the league, but, you know, behind the scenes, I think Texas is trying to keep him around for another year. I think they're trying to keep recruiting him, so to speak. And so I don't see a lot of wiggle room there. I think they would definitely add a veteran defensive tackle if they could, because when you go to the SEC, you can't have enough defensive linemen. And I think they'd like to add another tight end, especially if they lose Sanders, because you return Gunnar Helm, but you want someone a little more explosive. You want someone maybe a little more athletic. And so that number changes daily, guys. But right now, I could see Texas adding maybe 2 or 3 more from the portal total.
Justin, they've had a lot of success down here in Waco recently. I guess most recently here, Kobe Black from Connolly pledging to the Longhorns. They got Jelani McDonald prior to that, and then Trey Wisner had the DeSoto stop there in the middle before he arrived in Austin, but he was a Connolly guy at one point. Kobe Black, your thoughts on landing him, what that means moving forward, and just how you see his role with the Longhorns as he spends his days there on the 40 acres.
Yeah, they've Terry Garrett's done a good job down there at Connolly. I think he's earned some Texas gear with the amount of cadets headed to Austin. And you know what? Jelani McDonald, who I absolutely love, and Trey Wisner, they were helpful in this recruitment. These guys aren't just good football players, dude. You see, these are incredible basketball players. These are athletes. And so, you know, with Kobe, I love that kid. He really handled the recruiting process maturely. You know, people get all bent out of shape about star rankings and taking visits, and did he take this visit? Is it an official here? You know, stuff like that. Kobe never panicked. Kobe never had any sense of anxiety. Sometimes these recruits, it becomes anxious and nervous. Kobe never did, and I think it's because Kobe had 2 older brothers that both played college sports, notably Corey, who was a starting quarterback for Oklahoma State. And so I think he got to see how they went through the process. And then his parents, this wasn't the first rodeo for them either. His dad, Keith Black, obviously played for Bill Schneider at Kansas State. He's familiar with the recruiting process as well. And if you ask them, they just let Kobe kind of make his call, make his decision. Honestly, Kobe made his decision in the summer. He committed to Texas, I believe it was either June or August when he actually committed to Texas. But he wanted to make sure, and that's why he kept it under wraps for forever. 6'2", 200 pounds. He's a corner. He's going to be your boundary corner. He is going to replace Ryan Watts in the secondary for the Texas Longhorns. When they brought him on one of his trips on campus one time, when they brought up the video session, they said, "You see Ryan Watts, number 6? That's you. And that's your opportunity. When he goes to the league, we need you to fill in and be an impact guy as a freshman, like a Manny Muhammad, the freshman from South Oak Cliff, like an Anthony Hill, the freshman from Denton Ryan, like a Derek Williams, the freshman from New Iberia down in Louisiana." Kobe sees the opportunity to play early. He sees Sark's attention to playing the young talent because the best on the field is going to play whether you're a freshman or a senior. Kobe Black does a little bit of everything. Played the offense, played defense. He's a corner at the next level. He was a great, good basketball player, good on ball defender, ran track. He's just a great athlete and a great kid. And the fact that he's going to be able to potentially make an impact early, like some of these other freshmen that he watched this season, I think was probably the biggest factor he chose Texas.
Justin, they have a game. They do have a game coming up, even though there's still a lot of time. Everyone's back to work. And the focus on the game itself, despite some guys who have entered the portal. Again, Malik Murphy, I hate the fact he won't be a part of the semifinals. It just doesn't seem right. But otherwise, the health of some of the players that were kind of nicked up. I know Worthy's ankle, but he was fine. Your thoughts about who they are right now as they get yet some more practices in?
Yeah, there is another game. It's a college football playoff for the first time for the Texas Longhorns, and the situation with the portal coming is the timing any worse? Could this have been jimmied any worse? It's just I hate that Malik Murphy won't be there doing that, or Jalen Catalina, or a number of other kids. I did like Sarkisian come out and saying, look, if they do want to hit the portal and still stay with the team through the playoffs, they're more than welcome. Because before that, they weren't allowed to do that. At Texas, if you hit the portal, you got to go. And so Sark did bend the rules a little bit there. But, they had 2 practices on Friday and Saturday. Saturdays was spirited and physical. They had a ton of recruits commit on campus. They wanted to really get things ordered, get back in the swing of things, knock the rust off. And I heard it was a tremendous practice with a good team run afterwards. They got to prep because – if there's one thing you've got to pay attention to with Washington, it's that passing attack. They are chunk yardage monsters. Michael Penix gets one read and goes. They got 3 NFL caliber receivers. They got 1,000-yard receiver. 1,000-yard running back to balance things out. And so Texas is going to have to shore up. I think that that safety play is going to have to be, shored up a little bit. You got Jaron Thompson back there. You got Michael Taft. Problem is Derek Williams, your star freshman, is going to miss half of the first game, is going to miss the first half in the Sugar Bowl because of a targeting penalty in the Big 12 championship. That is going to burn a little bit more than I think people anticipate because Derek has been absolutely, they call him the Raptor for a reason. He came from Jurassic Park because he tracks and smacks. They need to shore that up because we know Rome is going to go big. We know Jalen Polk, the East Texas Lufkin native. We know he's been explosive and spectacular in the 2 years he's been up in Washington. They're going to have to get right. I think Texas has an advantage in the line of scrimmage. I think the offensive line and the defensive line definitely favor Texas. And I think the physical play is actually what they're going to push. I don't think it's going to be as wide open as you may have seen the Texas Tech game or some of the other ones. I think it's going to be more of a physical game. But the best part is that they got guys healthy. CJ Baxter's been dinged up all year. He got some time off for the bowl practice. He's finally getting healthy. Jahdae Barron, another one. He's been dinged up 3 or 4 times this year. They've had a few offensive linemen going through some injuries as well. And so they were able to kind of recover, recharge, refuel, set some stuff up, get some game plan put in. And the fact that they played last year, I actually think benefits Texas because it was a good game. That was a game we covered. It was actually a really good game. And you could see Washington being a really good team the next year. I don't know if we expected Texas to be this good the next year. I certainly didn't. But Washington and Kalen DeBoer has done such an amazing job up there. You got to tip your cap that they've done well. But at the end of the day, get better, get healthy, recover, get the game plan installed, get prepared, get focused. They'll open some presents in a few days. They'll come back, finish practice, head down to New Orleans, and get ready for a really big title bout, because Washington is going to bring it. Those guys get down the field offensively as fast as anybody in the country. And I think if there's a weakness in the Texas team, it's that back end. It's those two safeties. You got to make sure you're in the right spot, taking the right angles. And so it's going to be fun, Smokey. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a great game. I think both teams are pretty evenly matched on the outsides. And so I'm just ready for I'm not used to being in this position. I'm not used to having to wait till New Year's Day, covering the Longhorns. We've only had one of those bowl games, which was the Sugar Bowl in 2018 when Texas and Sam Ehlinger beat Georgia. So this is new territory for me, brother.
Justin, you mentioned that secondary. It's weird when you think about the four teams that are in the playoff. Look, we know that Texas matches up well with Alabama because we saw that early in the year. You would just think that on paper they match up pretty well with Michigan, seeing as they played a bit of a tougher schedule, that Michigan, hasn't played teams with the playmakers they have. But of all the teams that they could have drawn in that first round, Washington seems to me to be the one that would be the matchup that they would have the most problems with of all the others.
Yeah, and I would agree, except for the fact that they saw them last year. So there's some familiarity there. And obviously Coach DeBoer and those guys are going to change it up and they'll bring a new game plan. But I think that actually helped them last year. They got kind of a preseason game, so to speak. If you wanted to count that extra game from last year to sort of prepare for those guys. I actually think they match up. I think the matchup with Washington is pretty even, just like I think the Alabama-Michigan matchup is pretty even. When Bama and the Wolverines go against each other, that's going to be a 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of game. I mean, there will be blood. That's just going to be a tough fight. With Washington, this thing might open up. You might see some fireworks come out of that game. And so I actually think Texas has the advantage having played them last year and played them pretty well. And notably, Quinn Ewers' best passing game in 2022 was against Washington. It was in that Alamo Bowl where Sark actually opened up the offense a little bit more, let him do a few more things, and until the Big 12 championship, that was the most yardage he had ever thrown for in a football game. And so Ewers, when he's confident, guys, and he's clicking, Texas is hard to stop. That countered with that Texas defensive line, I'm not sure. I wouldn't have imagined the Texas D-line is better than Georgia's or better than Michigan's or better than Alabama's. And then you watch the season and you watch the tape, and guys, they're all pretty even. If not, Texas may have an advantage in a couple spots, believe it or not, especially with the experience. And so the fact that they played last year, the fact that there's similar tendencies there from Coach DeBoer, I think that actually benefits Texas. It makes it a great matchup, though. I like this matchup better than a rematch with Bama in the first round or playing Michigan again, which they're going to actually go to Ann Arbor week 2 next season. So we may see a reprise of this again next year.
Justin, what's it like, just this convergence of events? I mean, as you pointed out, this is kind of unfamiliar territory, being in the playoff. It is being in the playoff for the very first time, but the aches and pains and the bumps and the bruises of bad coaching hires or this or that over the years that's kept them from really flexing as much as they want. It feels like they're kind of getting their full superpowers all working sort of at the same time, whether it be off the field in recruiting, where clearly they're benefiting there from winning, but also just the state of things, NIL, things like that, but winning on the field. I mean, just what's it kind of like to see this program sort of flexing its muscle and showing all that it can show, but still having a little bit more out there on the bone to chew on?
Tom Herman said it best. He called it alignment. And I think that's what you see. You've got an alignment with boosters, with coaches, with administration, with players. This is a player-led team. First 2 years with Sark, it was coach-led. It's no more. This is a player-led squad. Jalen Ford, Quinn Ewers, Kelvin Banks, Jatavian Sanders. These guys are running the show. And the thing I think is most interesting is that as they're ascending and as the trajectory is going up, Sark still seems to find motivating factors. if it, he'll take a sentence said by a coach too, last season. He took a lot of what Joey McGuire, everybody remembers the speech Joey McGuire gave in Lubbock last year after that overtime win over the Horns. They didn't forget that. They didn't forget the close games with Baylor over the last 5, 6, 7 years where they were nail-biters. They didn't forget those games. And so I think that Starks does such a good job of keeping them motivated, keeping them humble. I love his press conferences because he's so transparent. If something goes right, he gives the credit to the coaches and the players. If something goes wrong, he takes it on himself. And that's a little different from the previous regime. That's a little unique. The buzz is all over the state. I was at the UIL State Championship this weekend. That's almost everything people were talking about. Texas going to the playoffs. It's that momentum. Recruits are feeling it. They just landed 2 ginormous commits today in Xavier Folsame out of Florida, the Florida commit out of McKinney, and then obviously Andrew McCougar from Clemson. And then now they've got an announcement coming in the next 20 minutes, a 4-star tight end out of Calhoun, Georgia, who holds 39 offers and is choosing either Texas, Ohio State, or Central Florida. So I think what you're seeing is just a swell of momentum, and it's building. But Sark is keeping these guys' ears low. He's keeping these. I mean, Saturday was a rough practice, guys. It wasn't let's just get back into the rhythm of it. It's cutthroat. Sark said it best. They didn't come here just to come here. They want to win this thing. And the fact that they beat Alabama when they did, how they did, where they did, I think they've used that momentum. It reminds me of the 2019 LSU Tigers when Joe Burrow and Orgeron came into Austin and played an insane game, one of the best football games I've ever seen. And they came out on the win, and they asked Joe Burrow, later on during the season after the national championship, when did you know this was a title team? They said that win in Austin in that second week. They said that carry over. I think that Alabama win, I think there's some of that with Texas. I think there's some of that within the locker room. The culture is solid. These guys aren't just taking kids in the portal. They are very judicious. You have to pass a physical, a mental eval, but also a cultural eval, because this is a culture building type process right now. And so everybody's talking about it. Listen, when Notre Dame is good, when USC is good, when the Texas Longhorns are good, college football just seems more fun. I don't know why it's like that, but I've heard that before, and it feels like that rings true. When the New York Yankees are good, baseball's good. When the Dallas Cowboys are good, football's good. But at the end of the day, I think it's just a culmination of a lot of goodwill, a lot of hard knocks over the last decade, and then finally putting it all together for a really special, potentially super special 2023 campaign.
Justin, thank you. Appreciate your time. We'll be back in touch. Justin Wells on many things, transfer portal, National Signing Day, and also the fact that they're getting ready for a semifinal game and a bowl rematch from last year in San Antonio with the University of Washington. One quick note, Matt Brown is next. Chandler Morris, TCU quarterback, has entered the transfer portal. He, of course, was 2021, made it look like an All-American and a win at home against Baylor last year. Or then the next year, Duggan took over when Morris was hurt, never really materialized with what they have with Hoover, and so he now has entered the transfer portal.
Florida State also got Marvin Jones Jr.
Okay. All right. Took him too long, Paul.
Yeah, it took him 2 years too long.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So Chandler Morris in the portal. Craig,
third
you wrap it up?
school for another quarterback. Started off at Oklahoma and TCU. We'll see where he lands now. But, and thanks to Justin, there's good stuff there. It seems a lot. Everything's coming up Texas these days.
Including volleyball.
Yeah, volleyball, national champs, beating Nebraska pretty handily yesterday. So, a lot of things working well for them. But, thanks to him. But on Chandler Morris, that writing was kind of on the wall with the way the season finished out. Josh Hoover, seemed to be the guy in line once he took over and kind of worked his way through the end of the year there, and just you've got the feeling that Morris was on his way out, even with games to play. And so this is not a big surprise. We'll see, what the market, again, looks like for him. It's very crowded with quarterbacks, but there's obviously very high demand. So I'm sure he'll, find a landing spot in due time. But, not a surprise overall.
All right, when we come back, Matt Brown joins us, extra points on many things of just anything college football. And then we'll also Today, check in with Syracuse under now new head coach Fran Brown, who was on the staff with Matt Rule at Temple and also at Baylor. We'll hear from Emily Leiker from the Syracuse Post-Standard. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, used to be as you get older. You might be the one out of every 3 to 4 men that have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. It could be as simple as you're lethargic, you don't have the same energy. It could be that your sex drive drops. It could be ED. It could be all of the above. And Dr. Kent Petty wants to help you out. At least find out whatever might be going on with you in your body. If it's testosterone, he can help you with that. Dr. Petty will help set up a blood appointment with you. You go get the blood lab work. He then pays for it. He then gets the results, contacts you, and if your testosterone level is too low, he can put you in a program to help you become the high-performance man you want to be, used to be, need to be at PettyClinicLowT.com.
Oh, Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, how lovely are your SUVs. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, I love the trucks you have for me. Strong and tough with luxury, room for all my family. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, you are the dealership for me.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. GXG works with partners and donors to offer a suite of options to student athletes, including connections with local businesses and nonprofits, entrepreneurial development, and other avenues to broaden the NIL profile of student athletes. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Donors may wish to support the general fund or direct funds to specific sports. Oversight of the NIL Fund is managed by the Board of Directors of Startup Waco and the Baylor NIL Advisory Advisory Council. GXG is a program of Startup Waco, a tax-exempt organization under Internal Revenue Code Section 501c3. Donors should consult their tax advisors regarding the tax deductibility of donations to GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Matt Brown, Extra Points, always one of our best when it comes to segments on college football, joins us. Smokey, Paul, and Craig on 365 Sports. Matt, thank you very much. What are your thoughts about where we are with the NCAA calendar, transfer portal, NIL, National Signing Day, bowl games, opt-outs, and it's going to get larger next year when 12 teams are going to play later in the year?
Yeah, trying to do all of this in mid to late December is pretty ridiculous. And it's ridiculous for, us media members who are trying to give the attention that the games themselves deserve. But it's obviously even more ridiculous for coaches. I think most fans understand this, but in case you don't, if you're a team that's not playing in a New Year's Six game or in the college football playoff, you're playing in one of these kind of mid to late December bowl games. These are not the best bowl practices you're ever going to have because half the coaching staff is looking for another job right now. Everyone's trying to finish up National Signing Day. And then also a fifth of the roster is looking to transfer or is transferring, and everything's in flux. And then you're also still trying to prepare for a game. It's ridiculous. But I don't know if there's an easy solution to fix any of that that's going to comply with antitrust, that's going to comply with labor rules, or that will make sense for the people that ultimately make these decisions, which are not football coaches who have to live with the reality of the world, but ADs and presidents.
So, Matt, what would be the things that would run up against labor laws and antitrust that would make it difficult for them to change the calendar? In a perfect world, right, beyond the transfer windows we have right now, that there are very specific times when an athlete or anybody else can kind of hit the proverbial free agency market. And obviously you wouldn't do that during the playing calendar. I think in a perfect world, right, you'd have December to be about bowls and about like player retention, and you have your National Signing Day, and then you would have the transfer portal era after that. And then you would reassess those depending on what coaches end up doing. But the difficulties you have here are when you try to unilaterally impose additional restrictions on when athletes can leave, you risk a lawsuit. And even stuff that seemed like relatively common sense, or like the NCAA saying, hey, you can't transfer more than once without sitting out a year. Well, that brought in 7 state attorneys general, including some very different politically states, to file a lawsuit, and then it looks like they're going to win. So that's kind of the part of the challenge of trying to establish guardrails around any of this, be that the calendar, be that roster counts, be that how this portal system works. These are all things that typically have to get hammered out in collective bargaining.
Matt, one of the subjects that gets brought up that I don't really know enough about, so hopefully you can shed some light. People bring up, what about eligibility? Where does that fall in here? Like, can you force a guy sue if he? I mean, how would that even work moving forward? If you understand where I'm coming from here.
No, this is a good question, right? So, as I understand it, from talking with a couple of the sports law people we hit up on a regular basis, like the one of the few places where courts are still giving the NCAA, some benefit of the doubt is when it comes to requiring a baseline level of academic eligibility. That you have to take X number of classes, you have to be a bona fide student, and that has not been, attacked by judges, even in these very aggressive anti-NCAA rulings, which isn't to say that could change or couldn't change in a couple of years. I could also see a world, given where these cases are going, where somebody sues and says, why should I have to stop playing college sports after 5 years?
Right.
Right? Like, I'm going to make more money from NIL than I would playing as a professional or playing elsewhere. I'm still a student in good standing. Why can't I play for 6 or 7? That's an unfair, cap on my ability to earn a living. And 6 years ago, we would have laughed that lawsuit out of the courtroom. Now, I don't think we can at this point, because so much of the deference that the NCAA has enjoyed from the legal system is really being not just chipped away, but really like sandblasted away, power washed away.
Matt, is it almost as if there's the dam breaks, or it's going to break, or whatever it might be, the door's going to bust down, and it's going to bust down, but you're too lazy to fix it, and then once it does, it's too late to fix it?
That is kind of where we are, and I don't necessarily know if lazy is the right word, but one of the kind of challenges in governing college sports right now is that it can be difficult to point and say, this thing is this guy's responsibility. Like, if you think that U.S. civics is complicated and trying to figure out how a bill becomes a law and it's this lawmaker, but actually it's their chief of staff, and it turns out that everything's really run by some 23-year-old doofus that is the one who actually wrote the bill. The NCAA is 9 times more complicated than that. And so, I think coaches and athletic directors and most presidents and most smart reporters and most fans realize the door is breaking. But then the question is, whose responsibility is it to address it or to fix it? And it isn't really something that an individual AD can do, at least not publicly. Coaches have very little meaningful influence on how any of this stuff works. The conference commissioners don't want to promote a solution that might disadvantage their league relative to the others. Everybody's pointing to Congress, and then Congress is pointing back to the NCAA. If I knew how to fix it, I'd be in a very different line of work. But because this is so decentralized, it's easy for a lot of people to say, we know the problem, but the responsibility ultimately lies somewhere else until it's too late.
So, Matt, I proposed a fix last week to the calendar, but everything you say has something like move the early signing day to July or just get rid of it. Well, then that probably has something. Move give academic waivers, because you still have to do that, and you have to do all these things. There's not really a solution to fix any of this without each, if it's a 5 to 10 step process, each of those steps having a major roadblock.
That's how I understand it right now. And not just a roadblock, it also just takes time, because it's not something where all the coaches can get together, after the college football national championship game, endorse a proposal and have it approved in the calendar in late February, or even voted at the NCAA convention in January. It typically takes a lot longer than that. My hope, and I think I speak for almost everybody that works in or around college athletics, my hope is that some level of tweaks can go into effect, even if we can't fix all of the problems. For my money, I think just getting rid of the December national signing period completely would help more than it would hurt. But it's such a labyrinth, Byzantine legislative process. It's hard for me to bet on anything happening quickly.
Matt, can you break down or help everybody out there understand the significance and potential magnitude of the NLRB hearing that opened the day, focusing on whether or not athletes are employees, and kind of what this means as this now moves forward in the courts?
Yeah, and I have a lot of sympathy for fans that are like, look, man, I'm a college football fan because I don't want to have to think about things like antitrust or court cases, right? That's the rest of my life. But unfortunately, that is part of the deal here. The National Labor Relations Board is an administrative law body here that's trying to determine if men's football, basketball, and women's basketball players within not just USC and not just what's left of the Pac-12, but potentially all of the NCAA are in fact employees. And there's not going to be a final decision rendered whenever this particular hearing ends. There's going to be appeals. It's going to go back and forth. This process will stretch out throughout 2024. But in the event the NCAA loses, which I believe is very possible, it's not a sure thing, but it's very possible, then you're going to see an immediate massive change in not just the kind of NIL industrial complex, but you're going to see enormous changes in how every single Division I athletic department allocates and spends money, and what kind of football program, what kind of athletic department they want to be. Because if an athlete is an employee, well, at the very least, they're due minimum wage and payroll taxes and Social Security and workers' comp and any other level of independent benefits, which will be a cost factor. Presumably then, in most places, maybe not in all of the South, but in most places, they'll have the opportunity to bargain, to create a union, to push for more than minimum wage, which I think all of us could agree. If they are employees, they should be paid more than $9 or $10 an hour. And then suddenly you're looking at 8, 10, 12, $30 million more in expenses for a major athletic department. And so now you have some very difficult questions. Can you afford to sponsor more than the minimum NCAA sports? Can you afford to do a dramatic reallocation of how you're spending money? The days of a football coach at a place like Baylor or Houston or TCU making $8 million, those days are over the second any of these athletes are ruled employees. The days of a college sports offensive coordinator making $1.5 million will not function, will not exist in a world where you have to pay the athletes beyond scholarship and room and board. There's simply not enough money. There's a reason why that doesn't happen in any other level of professional sports outside of the elite of the elite. So it's hard to overstate just how much that would reshape everything in college athletics. So I'm telling you guys, if it's not the NLRB, it's coming one way or another.
Matt, where did you get all of your legal knowledge? Did you study law, or is this something that you, like a lot of us, it's way above my pay grade, but you just found a way to soak it all in, or is there something in your background that allowed this to be easier to understand?
You know, it's funny. Like I didn't go to journalism school. I have a degree in political science. I kind of fell into this industry in the back end, and I never went to law school, but I worked around the legal profession for a little while. With this beat, right, off the field stories in college football, college sports, that's what I do. That requires you to kind of cross train a lot of different things. I joke with people. The first year I launched this newsletter, man, my knowledge of biology was the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and I got a C- in some kind of biology class at Ohio State a decade ago. But I had to learn to be an epidemiologist because COVID is suddenly the most important thing in the world, right? Now that media rights valuations is a major part of this beat, I'm not ready to work for Navigate, but I had to learn a lot about it. And because my publication is read by so many university professors, that means that I've become introduced to a lot of law professors, a lot of people that are attorneys as part of these cases. And they reach out to me and I talk to them, and sometimes it's just like, look, let me spend an hour and ask a bunch of dumb questions so then I can translate all of this stuff in plain English to the rest of my audience. I don't want to cosplay as a lawyer, but I have to talk to enough lawyers for this beat that I think I should get some CLE hours.
I'm going to say this, I hope you don't mind. You put up on your Twitter page about Extra Points, which is a great newsletter, and you kind of summarized a lot of what you cover. And you're looking at the possibility of selling it or looking for somebody to become a financial partner. I'm not sure. I'm not trying to speak for you. You have a great newsletter. I hope that works out. And if there's anybody that listens to us and watches us, and we have some dudes with some money, I hope everything works out for you.
I really appreciate that. I'm happy to kind of explain this, right? Like, I had a great 2 years working with D1 Ticker. They're a great company that I think does a lot of important things in college athletics, and they've just decided, hey, this you got a great product. Just doesn't fit with our company anymore. We're a different kind of company. We want to put that investment somewhere else. That's business. Can't be angry about that. Totally understand. And running this kind of publication, it's too much work for one guy, especially a guy with little kids like I do. So, maybe I'll end up working for Sports Business Journal or ESPN or Sportico in a couple of weeks. Maybe another publication buys this. Maybe somebody who's listening here that wants to dabble in a business or knows a thing or two about selling ads, and I sell a minority stake. that's fine too. But, I'm not used to hitting the transfer portal myself. I'm used to writing about it for other people. But I think one way or another, maybe after Christmas, I don't think the internet's done with me yet. I feel pretty good that I'm going to find a spot to keep doing what I'm doing.
You got a spot on this show anytime you want to come on and talk about what you do. And good luck. Keep us in touch. Great stuff as always, Matt. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, fellas. I appreciate it. If I don't get a chance to talk to you beforehand, have a wonderful Christmas.
You too. Absolutely, you too. We will hear from Emily Liker on Syracuse as they picked up Kyle McCord, who was thought to be a guy that Nebraska might end up with. And then the Dylan Raiola story started to pop, which I still wasn't so sure that was going to happen, but he was in Lincoln again. And Paul, what did he do?
He is on his way. It's legacy day in college football. Marvin Jones Jr. on his way to Florida State. Dylan Raiola, Smokey, is going to Nebraska, told the coaches on a visit this weekend that he was going to go there and that Nebraska is in his blood, and he's proud to be part of something bigger than himself.
Well, that's something they surely need. They probably win 3 to 4 games last year with just a quarterback, with all due respect to Purdy and others. But obviously Sims was a mess with so much going on. But congratulations. Matt Rule and his staff needed that. Blood came in that time, and we'll see. What I thought when they gave his uncle a 53% raise and also extended his contract, you would think he didn't do that just because he's a good coach. I think that probably had something to do with him pulling in Dylan Raiola too.
Yeah, I mean, that's an absolutely huge get for Nebraska and for Matt Rule and the future of that program. You wonder, what life is like now without getting this, like what the thoughts are. But now with him in the fold, I mean, that just that puts everything else, a few notches higher than what your expectations were heading into the offseason and heading into next season. I mean, just like that, you suddenly got a big-time stud quarterback. Granted, he's still young. He's going to probably have some growing pains, but compared to what you had this past year and what your options were, I mean, this was the rules ever landed, I would think, by far. And, just absolutely massive get for the Cornhuskers. The writing was on the wall here. Then you heard the Carson Beck news. I think that kind of the timing of that obviously could have, had one thing to do with another perhaps. But I don't know. Maybe Carson Beck leaves and he's still joining Nebraska, as it said in there. He was telling them this weekend. So, yeah, I mean, however you want to slice it or look at it, this is a huge, huge win for Nebraska, biggest recruiting win for them in a long time. Massive get for Matt Rule and that staff, and let's see what they do with it. But, yeah, the excitement definitely gets raised a few levels here.
A lot of people mentioning it in the chat. Tracy Fisher, I've known Tracy for a long, long time, a big Nebraska fan. Randy Meyer, congratulations, among others. But Raiola means something because he committed, but he means something more if he can bring a few people with him as far as with some of the jet fuel that brings in his commitment. When we come back, Fran Brown and Syracuse, what a story that is. And they've gotten off to a nice start. Ohio State fans never really, I think, liked the Kyle McCord deal, although he was pretty good. Then he's gone. I remember when he visited Nebraska. Well, he and his father are helicopter parents. They're not the only ones. He's now going to Syracuse, and we'll hear that Emily Liker tells us about that and more. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for great customer service and for great repairs and just for a great time trying to buy a new or pre-owned vehicle, and they have both of those options available to you right now. As a family dealership, Christmas is very special at Richard Carr Motors, and time with family and friends is precious, so they know that getting your family safely to wherever you're going this holiday season is a priority, and whether you need a new SUV to travel with the folks or service on your existing car or truck, they are there to give you the best deals, which includes power and strength and a stunning interior with the GMC Sierra, a truck that has it all, and they have dozens in stock over on the lot ready to go right now. Save thousands in holiday savings on cars and trucks over at Richard Carr, including qualified buyers saving $8,000 on those GMC Sierra twin-turbo elevation models, plus military and first responders can save an additional $500. Restrictions do apply, so you can talk to the good folks over at the dealership, whether online or over the phone or in person, to get more of the details. But if you're not looking to buy new and the GMC Sierra is not where your eyes currently are, you just want to get into something that's not quite as new but just as safe and just as good of a deal. Well, they trade for the best, so they have a lot full of quality of pre-owned cars and trucks in stock right now. Over 90 used cars and trucks to choose from, all inspected with a 172-point inspection and that Richard Carr seal of approval. The financing goal is 100% credit approval, and they say yes when others say no. So check out the crew that's been in business for 24 years in Central Texas. Richard Carr, a great man, has built a reputation as the people that you can count on for your automotive needs. Run by proud Central Texans and proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call them now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Emily Liker, Syracuse Post-Standard, joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. And Emily, thank you very much for being a part of the show. How much of a surge or momentum has Fran Brown given Syracuse football?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me, you guys. Thanks for reaching out. Fran Brown has definitely supplied a huge surge of momentum, particularly in recruiting here over this past 2-3 weeks that he's been around. Obviously, that's important just with early signing day right around the corner. So, looking up certainly for the Orange in recruiting, but across the board under Brown's leadership. He's already made some of his staff hires, not quite all of them yet. But yeah, big surge of energy, a lot of excitement from the fan base, and things are looking good.
So Kyle McCord was 11-1 at Ohio State. He's on his way to Syracuse. This is a huge boon for Fran Brown and the staff. How did this come about with Kyle McCord at Syracuse? And no offense to Syracuse, but that's a bit of a change from Ohio State.
Yeah, McCord, I don't know a ton about McCord's reasoning for coming yet. We haven't obviously been able to talk to him. But I do know he's a Philadelphia area kid. He's from the New Jersey side there of Philadelphia. And so that's kind of the same region and area that Fran Brown is from, that a lot of the staffers that he's bringing in are from, that a lot of the other players we've seen commit to Syracuse since Fran Brown's been hired are from. So there's certainly the regional ties. I think the situation coming in for him is good. Like, it's not like he was transferring and risking losing a starting job by coming to Syracuse. Like, he's going to be the guy here. And it sounds like from what we've heard of what Fran Brown wants to do with the offense, which is kind of more of a pro-style QB, very pass-heavy type situation. I mean, it sounds like McCord will fit that bill perfectly.
Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jeff Nixon is expected to be the OC, eventually named officially, right? But trying to finish out his NFL obligations, is that correct?
Right. He has been the name that's come up. I believe Pete Thamel from ESPN first reported it. I might be wrong, so don't hold me to that. But yes, Jeff Nixon is the guy who's come up. I'm assuming we won't get an official announcement on that until closer to the end of the NFL season, or at least to the end of the Giants season.
So they've been able to put together part of the staff, and as you mentioned, there's some, I guess, not distractions, but some conflicts right now. What about Fran Brown's personality? We got to see him, got to know him when he was here, and he just kind of infuses energy, but a quiet, at the same time, if this makes sense, kind of a calm, quiet confidence.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. I know one thing that a lot of the Syracuse fans and also the Syracuse media has been very excited about is just how transparent he is and what he wants to do with the program and what he thinks of the program and who he's going to be as a coach and who he wants his players to be. That's just, I think, really refreshing, because I think towards the end of Babers' tenure, a lot of people were frustrated by just kind of seemingly a lack of transparency, a lack of honesty around a lot of things, or not honesty, but forthcomingness about a lot of things. And so to have a guy like Fran Brown come in and just kind of be transparent off the bat, not act like he's needing to earn trust necessarily or trying to win you over, I think has been really refreshing.
Their also other big hire was Elijah Robinson, a defensive coordinator coming up from Texas A&M, and that has put them in the mix, especially for some portal guys like Fadil Diggs, who's going to visit there, a New Jersey guy. How big of a splash has Elijah Robinson made already?
Yeah, he's a big splash, and Fran made sure to announce him and make it clear how big of a deal he is. Right when Fran was introduced, he brought up Robinson at his introductory presser and basically said, you know what, guys, we're not going to have this guy for long. He's going to go on and be a head coach somewhere else like I'm doing right now. So we got to take advantage of him while he's here. And you know what? There's quite a few linemen in the mix, quite a few defensive linemen, certainly through the transfer portal and through recruiting that have clearly, I think, just been a result of Elijah Robinson and what he's able to do. So he has been just as big a splash. I'm excited to get to know him a little bit more. I know he's been up on campus doing some of the recruiting stuff, but he is still kind of with Texas A&M for the time being. So he's a little bit splitting time right now.
How's that going to work coming up later on this week, Emily, with the bowl game against South Florida? I mean, I guess your thoughts on that game itself, but I'm sure there's as many people just waiting for that to be over with so they can fully dive into this fun and exciting hire and off-season more fully. But what's kind of the expectation about how they'll handle that in the midst of this transition?
Yeah, so the 2023 staff is handling the bowl game. So Nunzio Campanelli, who's another New Jersey guy and is actually being retained on Brown's staff as, we believe, quarterbacks coach. He was tight ends coach this year. He's the interim head coach and is leading the rest of the staff through this game and the team, of course. There's only one coach that's not sticking around for the game from the past season, and otherwise it's kind of just they wanted to close things out the right way in their terms, and Brown's going to be around, but he will not be calling plays or anything like that.
Emily, Syracuse has an amazing history when it comes to football, but it's been spotty. You have mentioned that with Dino Babers, who used to be on a staff at Baylor, as was Fran Brown when he was with the Matt Rule staff. How much is football there with all the other things they have, like, for example, men's basketball, Boeheim's gone, but there's an incredible history there. I mean, my God, lacrosse or other sports that they're very good at, wrestling, etc. How much does football ring the bell there?
You know, I think, honestly, it's kind of a mix. You know, basketball hasn't been as great as it had been in a few years now, and so I think a lot of the kind of excitement between all these sports has spread out a little bit. Certainly, like I said at the top of our call, Brown's introduction is kind of reigniting that and seemingly bringing more energy to football. And so we'll see if that kind of maintains and carries all the way through next season. And we'll could take a look at what attendance numbers are and stuff like that. But yeah, you know, honestly, I think right now a lot of Syracuse sports are in the same place in terms of fan base and support, and that you got a lot of people who are really loyal and will watch them, whatever. And then you also got kind of a decent chunk of fans who have been frustrated the past few years and are hoping these new regimes can kind of bring them back into being full-fledged fans.
Well, Emily, you're going to enjoy Fran Brown and Elijah Robinson and Jeff Nixon. They're all great guys. So, congratulations on being a media member that gets to cover a nice coaching staff. Sometimes it doesn't always happen that way.
Thank you, Emily.
Definitely looking forward to it.
I bet you are, and you should. Thank you, Emily. We appreciate your time and patience. We ran a little bit late with you. You're the best. Thanks for joining us. Emily Liker, Syracuse.com, also with, again, the Syracuse Post-Standard on Fran Brown. Great guy. And that Jeff Nixon, of course, has been a part of the NFL. He's been around. His son, Will, played high school football here, and he is where now?
Washington
Huskies.
Playing in the college football playoff.
And also, Elijah Robinson, my God, when he left A&M, there's a lot of people that were distraught about that because of what he did at A&M. Until Fisher was fired, he took over as the interim and then joined his friend Fran Brown at Syracuse.
I think had they named him, and look, you can't blame Mike Elko for not. I mean, like he wanted to keep him as a defensive line coach, but knew he would lose him if he was going to get a coordinator job, which he did 3 days later, which was not a surprise, given his ascendancy and the way he recruits. But had they kept him at defensive coordinator, I think they probably don't lose Walter Nolan and Fadil Diggs.
Yeah, there's a good chance you're right.
Yeah, I mean, it's I've never cared about Syracuse football one iota in my entire life. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I've never had a reason to. I mean, the teams I follow never play Syracuse. It's not my part of the country, not the conference that I watch the most, and they haven't been very good. So not really involved in the major storylines like perhaps others have been. But now I am interested because Fran Brown's there, and he's already off to the start that he's off to. He was being groomed to be a head coach when he was here in Waco, albeit very briefly. It was very clear a guy from New Jersey and the lifestyle down here were not going to be like the future for him. He was going to find a way to get back closer to home, and he was going to be a guy that wasn't just going to stick around as an assistant coach somewhere. He was going to work his way up the ladder. And so I remember it was a very kind of hard feelings when he left Waco to go back to Temple, because he was going back to Temple where they had just come from. But also Matt Rule was obviously leaned on him heavy, and that was a big part of his staff, a big part of their recruiting, and that was a big loss for them. And so, he goes off to Temple and eventually to Georgia and does his thing there, and now here he is, and just a few short years later, and he's running his own program as everybody expected that he would at some point in time. And, they're, making big moves. I mean, whether it be Elijah Robinson or it's getting Kyle McCord in the portal, I mean, you got to pay attention to Syracuse all of a sudden, and especially in an ACC where you don't know what the freaking future holds or what it's going to look like moving forward. They're positioning themselves pretty well to not only be competitive, but to make some noise. And I think it's going to be, a team that's fun to follow again, or fun to follow maybe for some people for the very first time. But, they've had their run of Dino, and it was time for a change. And I think this change is already paying off in major ways. And I'm excited to see what the career of Fran Brown holds these next few years.
By the way, speaking of a former Baylor coach, but a player, Garrett, do you have the Cliff Odom tweet that is out there? Cliff Odom played at Baylor. He is going to join special teams coordinator at New Mexico State. That from Mississippi State, from Cliff Odom, who's at New Mexico State. He'll join Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State Odom played defensive back and was a fantastic speed at Baylor football.
Whoa, you're telling me that somebody in the Bryles tree is caring about special teams?
Yeah, that's what he does.
That's growth. That's growth.
Yeah, you're right. It's absolute. By the way, speaking of that, Keaton Thomas, who was played at Northeast Community College in Mississippi, who we had on last week with that dynamic personality. I had somebody reach out to me, say he visited Starkville. I talked to KT last night. I said, are you still taking visits? None of my business, but I was just checking to make sure I was doing my due diligence. He said, yes, I would sign with Baylor tonight, though. If I had the opportunity, he will sign with them on Thursday. So check it in with KT Thomas. There's a lot more to get to. Ole Miss, portal killing. I mean, they're doing well. Texas just got another highly ranked commit. Also, Texas Tech's ball win against Cal. UCF and Utah playing this week in the Big 12, Utah future Big 12. This is 365 Sports. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. The hot deals, and Ted Teague, this is fresh off the presses, 2024 Ram heavy-duty 3/4 ton and 1 ton trucks. A long list of the Ram trucks that qualify for 10% off MSRP. They also have Ram DS model trucks, 15% off MSRP. They have a great selection, hard to hit. Ted said hotter than Hades. The last call Challengers and Chargers in stock, ready for immediate delivery if you want to get that truck or that SUV or car before the end of the year. Now is the time to do so. They have 300 new and right at about 100 pre-owned cars and trucks that are right now available on their lot, their dealership. David Gray, the general sales manager, and his great team and folks at Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. All of that available. Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. Ted Teague, general manager and CEO. Get them now before the end of the year at Allen Samuels.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
To
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. GXG works with partners and donors to offer a suite of options to student-athletes, including connections with local businesses and nonprofits, entrepreneurial development, and other avenues to broaden the NIL profile of student-athletes. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Donors may wish to support the general fund or direct funds to specific sports. Oversight of the NIL Fund is managed by the Board of Directors of Startup Waco and the Baylor NIL Advisory Council. GXG is a program of Startup Waco, a tax-exempt organization under Internal Revenue Code Section 501c3. Donors should consult their tax advisors regarding the tax deductibility of donations to GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Phil Bennett will join us today at just after 5 o'clock. His thoughts about all of what's happening with college football and also even recruiting, transfer portal, and more. But Ole Miss, we've discussed a lot about who is eating up the portal. That tight end Justin Wells mentioned that was looking at Ohio State, UCF, and Texas, committed to Texas just a few minutes ago. He said like in 20 minutes, and that was also done. Look at who they've brought inside of their portal. Garrett, who's an LSU fan, was like, damn.
I mean, yeah. They loaded up. For me, this is a situation where if you look at their 3 losses this year, they had to get more physical in the trenches, especially on defense up front. And I think they're doing a good job of adjusting that in the portal and also looking at that A&M game where, you know, that was one where their offense was so much better than Texas A&M, but the physicality kept that game interesting, and it took a trick play for Ole Miss to kind of separate there. But bringing in guys like this, I think that's kind of what they need to do going forward, especially with Oklahoma and Texas coming in the Big 12, and Texas rolling the way they are right now as well.
All right, I'm going to throw this in there, and look, I'm going to talk about Ole Miss again in the top 5, but I'm going to add this as an addendum in case anybody's not going to hang around for that. They also have the number 3, this is according to 24/7 Sports, the number 3 JUCO player and wide receiver Deion Smith, the number 10 JUCO player and wide receiver Marquise Willis, the number 11 JUCO player in cornerback Cedric Bowers, and the number 13 JUCO player in linebacker Raymond Collins. So they have 4 of the top 13 JUCO guys as well. So they're going for it. Clearly, I mean, they've got a returning quarterback in Jackson Dart. They've got a quarterback behind him in Walker Howard that they clearly feel comfortable with. I mean, Spencer Sanders won't be there, obviously, but they're loaded at that. They look like they're loaded at wide receiver. They are putting the pedal to the floor to try to go and make some noise in the SEC next year.
Yeah, I hope Spencer Sanders got some good NIL money. I mean, other than that, he completely was just forgotten his entire last year of college football. For a guy who was a conference player of the year type of talent there a couple years back, just you didn't even know he was in college football basically. So that was always kind of puzzling from the start, that decision, given the members of that room. But yeah, I mean, Ole Miss to that point, they are loading up, and I think that they're a team that finds themselves in some interesting territory where you're not quite as good as, Alabama or Georgia, but you've been that second-tier team kind of nipping at heels and every once in a while getting the big upset and getting some huge wins along the way, playing in the Sugar Bowl, that kind of deal. Now you got Oklahoma and Texas rolling in, and the competition's only going to get fiercer. Like, where are you kind of in that big picture? Are you a team that can make the playoff on a regular basis? But, I mean, they're clearly feeling good about, their trajectory, and they're going all in this cycle and trying to fill, a lot of holes, especially on defense, as Garrett pointed out. I mean, that was a lot of defense. That's where they need their biggest boost. Juice Wells was a nice grab on the offensive side. They're going to typically be okay there with Kiffin. But, yeah, I mean, they're swinging big. They're one of, the top 5, I think, most active programs. You'd say Oregon is in that mix as well, among some others. But, yeah, they've been going crazy with the additions here out of the portal. So excited to see what that builds to for Kiffin and the Rebs moving forward.
By the way, an update on a football game, and then we'll go to the Jaden Daniels story. Old Dominion led Western Kentucky 28-0, and there was still just a minute and a half into the second quarter. Then 35-14. Western Kentucky has scored 21 unanswered points, scored with 19 seconds left. That bowl game is headed, that's the famous Toastery Bowl, that is now headed into overtime.
Yeah, look, you never doubt against the Hilltoppers. They've got a mythical figure that's their mascot, which I think is the best mascot in the history of mascots, because, what is it?
I always thought of it as like Converse or Keds high tops.
But you look at the Hilltopper.
Yeah.
What is he?
Yeah.
You don't know what he is.
No.
And that's the best part about it.
Yep.
He's not a Cardinal. He's not a Tiger. He's not a this.
Lions, Bears, whatever.
He's not that. He is just what he is.
He's just Big Red, man. That's his name. He's just Big Red.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So great story there. And I got to tell you, I saw that on my Twitter feed about the comeback, and my God, goods for Western Kentucky. Bailey Zappi was there as their quarterback, put up massive numbers. Old Dominion, the Monarchs. 2 of the better, in fact, names as far as some of the, mascots, the Monarchs and the Hilltoppers. But that game's in overtime. Not sure what's going on right now, but 35-35.
What is a toastery?
I don't know.
Is it a place you can go and get toast? Seems like a bit of a ripoff, but
did you look it up?
I don't know. It's
breakfast famous toastery
Pop-Tart knockoff. I don't know.
I'm looking it up. All right, Jaden Daniels, Heisman Trophy winner. I don't think this is any kind of surprise, but at the same time, he's going to opt out because, of course, the NFL draft. And just curious, Garrett, about this one.
I'm not surprised by this. I was more surprised waiting to see if any other players would opt out, Malik Neighbors and them. But there is a report coming out that Brian Kelly was asked about that earlier, and Wilson Alexander, who covers LSU, is saying Brian Kelly told them that he's not expecting any other opt-outs for this game. So hopefully it's Jaden Daniels. It's going to be interesting to see Garrett Nussmeier finally get his shot. I don't know if he's properly been developed because, Paul was having this conversation earlier. You recruited him out of high school, and that's something rare. Most people don't wait anymore. But how many reps was he getting with a first team in practice? I don't know how that has developed up to this point. Hopefully he looks good. Paul mentioned a while ago you brought in the quarterback from Vanderbilt as well to help out. But we'll see. But I'm excited to see what Nuss can do. But I'm not surprised that Jaden Daniels is sitting this one out.
Famous Toastery Bowl is in Charlotte, North Carolina.
I'm trying to find out where the locations of the famous toastery are.
The business?
Yes.
Well, I guess on the one hand, it's great marketing because y'all are giving them probably more internet hits than they've had in the last year, but you can't find any quality information, so that's a little bit problematic for them. But sounds like a heck of a game going on. We need to
I'll put it
have
on the
some
TV.
bowl games in the background here moving forward so that we can kind of have that as some ambiance here and shoot, they're on, and they're not going to be on for many more weeks, so might as well take advantage, and it sounds like a heck of one today. Not a busy bowl schedule beyond that. But that sounds like a good one that didn't start off very good, and good. I guess the famous toastery or whatever is getting its money's worth.
What's the restaurant that had chicken fried steak and I'm going blank. I don't know why I'm going blank.
Cracker Barrel.
The toastery with the mostery. We saw this all day breakfast thing years ago. We got that sometimes you want a burger or salad to start your day, an omelet or brunch to end your day. So that's where they are in Charlotte, North Carolina. And let's see, Brian Birch, I'm going to do too much. And Robert Maynard are the partners, owners. The first toastery was in Huntersville, North Carolina, and now the bowl game sponsor.
All right, they're not paying us.
They should be now, though.
Yeah, no kidding.
I know, but I didn't know.
No,
I was curious about it, so now we do. When we come back, I understand I went too far with that. Phil Bennett on everything college football, and this is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace with Christmas a week from today, New Year's then a week after that. What are you having with all of the family in town or maybe other gatherings that you still might have and you need a turkey or ham? And they've got different options. I was there last week. I went in to look at a prime rib, also looked at a couple of other options. Whatever you want, they have it with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Plus, up and down the aisles, there's 3 or 4 aisles and lanes of just like, for example, canned goods or pasta, seasonings, and much more. And they have sweets and treats.
4-759-85. Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB, your bank for life, is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
Oh, Richard Carr, Buick GMC, how lovely are your SUVs. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick GMC, I love the trucks you have for me. Strong and tough with luxury, room for all my family. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick GMC, you are the dealership for me.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Western Kentucky just blocked an Old Dominion field goal. They get the ball. It's, again, 35 apiece in the Toastery Bowl. And so watching that, Phil Bennett, longtime college football coach, joins us with Paul Craig. I'm David Smoak. Other than, well, let me ask you this. Bowl games can get frenetic and crazy. What about the one in the Alamo Bowl with Washington and or the Michigan State game, which is not fun to think about because that was a bizarre ending. What was your favorite memory or two in a bowl game anywhere you've been?
You know, I think that early in my career, when I got a taste of it, we right before A&M hired Jackie Sherrill, we had Tom Wilson was our head coach, and we had fought and ended up winning 8 games, and we played Oklahoma State, and Jimmy Johnson was hot at the time. And, Dave, we played them in the Independence Bowl. You know, there weren't that many bowls back then.
No kidding.
And if you went to a bowl, you were a good team. And they were loaded. They had Dexter Mann, Leslie O'Neal. I mean, and Gary Kubiak was our quarterback. And we had a guy that I'd recruited from my hometown that played for Jerry. His name was Jimmy Williams. And we went in there, and I'll never forget this. This is crazy. Billy Cannon was on our team. And my late wife, was at the game, and she had never met Jerry. And they were selling beer in quart cartons. So you can tell where this is going, right? And it was cold, and we beat the socks off of them. And after the game, we were all excited. Gary Kubiak and Jimmy Williams, they connected like for 4 touchdowns. And anyway, I come out, and Nancy's out there. She was a beautiful blonde. And I said, "What'd you think?" She goes, "I think your brother's crazy." I said, "Oh, I immediately went, oh, what happened?" She said, "He almost got in a fight with Billy Cannon's dad."
Oh, my goodness.
And I guess, and Billy was a linebacker for us. And it was crazy. But anyway, they made up good friends. Both of them had enjoyed the cartons of beer. But I just remember, because nowadays they would never think about giving you quart cartons. And it was a fun game, and it sort of exemplified the hard work we put in.
You mean LSU legend Billy Cannon?
Yeah, his son played at A&M. Yeah.
Yeah. Holy cow.
And he was in the stands, and he had told Jerry, "Sit down." And of course, Jerry, was coaching in Marshall and had a few choice words. They didn't know each other at the time. After the game, they were all buddy. But my late wife, she didn't think it was funny. She said, "Phil, it was your brother's crazy," which he was.
Yeah,
it's not every day.
Tell you that. Yeah,
it's not every day you get in a fracas with a Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah,
so
that's exactly right.
I mean, the story is worth it. Coach, how do you, as a coach now, different bowl games mean different things to different programs. It's a whole different thing. But if you are coaching one of the higher level bowl games and you've got guys opting out, you've got, if it's not in the playoff, it's not as important to some of them. Guys in the portal, how do you rally a team around the cause of winning the bowl game and getting better on into the next year?
You have to find the guys who want to play. If they don't want to play, right now, can you imagine people that are gambling on these games? You've got guys not playing, opting out. I don't know, but I do know this. I know that you got to find the guys who actually want to play, and that's the thing that I always remembered. I remember last year at North Texas, one of the things I appreciated about our kid, after Seth got let go and we were playing Boise and they were, 2 or 3 touchdown favorites, our kids wanted to play and they played like it. And you just, how you practice, how you approach it, sort of like what I talked about during the season, Paul, the kids will become a reflection of you. If you put importance on it, it becomes important. I talked to Daryl Dickey, who's at Georgia right now, and I said, "Well, how's the bowl practice going?" And he told me, he said, "If you're with Kirby Smart, you better be ready to practice and play every day." He said, this Florida State game is a big game for us. He's made it a big game. And I think that's the way it works.
Coach, just how much growth do you see from young players during this time period? How valuable is that getting those 15 practices for guys who normally aren't seeing the field?
It's crazy how much you see kids. We used to always keep them out scrimmage and do how much improvement, how excited they are, and it does. I really believe it. It gives you a chance, especially now that you're rebuilding your roster, to see, all right, this is what we're going to look like in the spring. This guy could play, or, how it is. I'm wondering nowadays, are they also cutting guys off of bowl practice? That becomes a two-way street. Are they seeing the guys that can play and getting rid of the guys who can't? But it's always a good time. It's in a very, it's not 100 degrees. not like fall camp. It's cooler, and the scrimmages are a lot of fun.
Phil, the story about Malik Murphy, the quarterback who won a couple of games at Texas when Ewers was out, entering the portal. UT said, hey, if you want to hang around but still enter the portal, that's fine. We want you here. Probably a lot of background on that too, but why can't, for example, 10 coaches, 10 ADs, 10 presidents, 10 athletes, student athletes, that's what I still call them, get in a room and figure out a calendar to prevent this from happening? And then yet again, on top of that, every university or different universities, different parts of the country have different starts to their spring semester.
We have to get some continuity with what's going on. I don't see us being able to survive if we don't. Number one, you mentioned it's a calendar, where it's a calendar conducive to both sides. These coaches who are depending on these kids and vice versa. I mean, we've got to be able to get this roster built, knowing what you need to do to get it built. The other thing on the player side, how many openings do you leave where you can leave the program? You're going to have right now. You've got a fall opening, you got a spring opening. I mean, why can't you just have one opening and then get with it? The other thing that's the big question right now, David, is what are they going to do with the injunction that about the multiple transfers? And they say, hey, if the injunction is ceased, then whoever played in those games is going to be, ineligible the rest of the way. That's a lot of ifs and buts.
Bill Bennett, longtime college football coach with us. Always a great segment, Mondays right here on 365 Sports.
Yeah, there's just so many things, Coach. Do you feel like the industry, coaching, might lose some guys, or they'll just, take NFL jobs or whatever because it's too complicated to follow anymore?
I talked to a veteran head coach, and one of the things I mentioned that I said, "How are you doing it?" And he said, the coaching aspect, he said, being with the players, I love it. He said, the practice, everything's the same. He said, I'm just too far into it. He's not old enough to retire. He said, we've just got to get, as David said, the powers to be, and we've got to get a common ground that everybody can be pleased with, and we've got to get this right. And he said, we don't have a ton of time, but yet we've got to get, and I think it's got to come from commissioners, it's got to come from ADs, presidents, and coaches. I think that the Coaches Association has got to be able to lead the charge, because right now, and the other thing we haven't even talked about, these coaches have had absolutely no break, none. I mean, the summer, they didn't have summer break. I mean, because of the way the schedule was. I mean, there's families, children, marriages, everything is at stake. And if you ever thought that the pressure was on, it's on now more than ever.
Coach, it was a different time when you were here in Waco, and that quarterback room was able to, despite all odds, and granted, times and rules were different, but kind of stay together. But is there any doubt in your mind that a Bryce Petty or a Seth Russell would have had coaches banging down their doors, begging them to enter the transfer portal had that existed back then? And is there any way that you could have been able to kind of keep that together given the difference in rules nowadays?
With what Art did, that would be the only way. The significance of how he used them, those kids would have to say, hey, I'm going to wait my turn. But that, yes, I mean, Seth Russell probably would have had every offer in the world, which he didn't have coming out of Garland. But I don't think Nick Florence, I mean, Nick doesn't get his dues enough. I mean, who would ever thought that following a Heisman Trophy, great player, great guy, Robert Griffin, that Nick would do the things that he did. But yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely, you have 1 year. I mean, I was just reading where, the quarterback at Ohio State made a statement. He said, it became obvious to me that if I didn't beat Michigan, I was going to have to leave. Now, how in the world, when you haven't lost a single game, but you lose your last game, would a kid ever think that? I mean, we have something's wrong with that.
All right, Jason Smith, you kind of know him. He was at Baylor, drafted by the Rams. The Rams. And then he was on the staff when you were at North Texas. I saw something. Right. Is he leaving? Is he getting out of coaching? What's going on with Jason?
No. He has got. He's going to be the associate head coach and the offensive line coach at Coffeyville Junior College.
Oh, okay.
They got him a great one. Jay Smooth is going to go to Coffeyville, Kansas, and I'm telling you, he's got. A lot of people get the bug for coaching. He is a working fool. I mean, I'm for a guy that was a first round pick and just absolutely is unbelievable with the kids. They're going to miss him. He was instrumental with them this year with Chandler Rogers there. But the kids loved him. We loved him. Of course, him and Clem have a special relationship, him and Art. And I always laugh. I said, he tells me, he said, Coach, I was going to come to SMU till Baylor offered me right at the end. And, he was sitting there at W.T. White. And of all things, people don't know this, his only touchdown, Sean Bell threw him a touchdown. They beat us, I think, in 2003 or 4, 25 to 20, 24, 25 to 20 or something. And one of their touchdowns was Big Smooth at tight end catching a touchdown from Sean Bell.
Speaking of Sean Bell, I don't know if you've heard this or not. You probably have. Brian.
Oh, I've been in contact with him.
Yeah,
I'm a Sean Bell fan.
I spoke with him for a little bit earlier this morning. He called me. He's at Houston. He said, "Go Cougs." Obviously, Brian played for Willie Fritz, and the fact he's got an opportunity to be the passing game coordinator and the quarterbacks coach for Fritz.
Yeah, it's a win-win for Sean, and trust me when I tell you this, he still loves Baylor. His heart, it was a tough decision, and but the ties to Willie, he and I had been talking about things. I was trying to help him here at A&M. I just think he's a guy that I think that he's everything I want in a coach in aspect of knowing the game, recruiting. I used to really enjoy going into Magnolia when he was over there in Magnolia West, and I just got to know him better and better. And then I thought his brother, I always laugh. I tell his brother, I said, y'all played us so tough. We got 4 guys hurt before we played West Virginia, and hell, we go up there and say, I'm going to blame you on my West Virginia fiasco. But he didn't buy that.
Phil, Sean is leaving his alma mater, and you did that, and it helped you spread your wings a little bit. I know that it's tough because that's the place that you love the most, and you're back in College Station near A&M now, but in a retired capacity. But you left and spread. How much did that help you just grow as a coach, seeing other places and learning other systems?
It was so beneficial, and everybody, all my coaches here told me, said, you've got to go, and I did come back. I got a chance to come back. And, but it's a growth pattern. And Sean, I think Sean's going to be a potential head coach one day. I really do. And I don't know where it will be, but I just think he has the dynamics to do that. And I'm excited for him. And he's never going to not love Baylor and his relationships and what it's given him. It's just there, just like I do A&M. I look back on my life, and going to A&M was the best decision I ever made. And I have great respect, and just like Sean does. Now, you've got to go out and do what's best. Coaching is, as we all know, highly competitive. You've got to produce nowadays, especially. And I just think this is the right time, and it's really a great break for him and his brother. I think his brother's going too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is. He's going to be the offensive analyst there like he was at Baylor, and a chance to coach under a guy that meant a lot to him.
Coach, 2 days away from National Signing Day. Granted, there's 2 of those nowadays, but this one's kind of the big one. For you, what were those last 48 hours like in terms of trying to nail down the class, make sure everything was in order? How frantic could it get, and how crazy could it get in these final couple days before signing day?
Back in the old days, when it was a little bit different right now, they would tell you, Coach, we'll call you. You know, I tell the story many times. You sit there and, you know, everything's nice. You know, yeah, it's going to be good. You're coming down, this and that. And I used to tell the young coaches, I said, well, here's what you do. I said, if they come in and they tell you right before it, well, Coach, I had a great time. If they give you that but, you stop them and you tell them, you say, listen, we're going to play a little game here. We're going to see which one can hang up the fastest. and you slam it. And they thought I was kidding till we had it happen one time, because you spend so much with those kids. You don't ever disrespect them, but you tell them, you know, they all say if it comes down to the last day, Coach, you're in it, and then they turn you down, you probably were never in it. It's hectic. And I know that nowadays it's different because most kids, you know, the deal's been set. And think about this. The finances are set. They've agreed on a price, and they're coming.
What was it like for your job to depend on 17 and 18-year-old kids once a year?
You know, we've talked many times on this show about Andrew Billings.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you have some victories and you have defeats. And the thing that I used to tell them, and I believe this with all my heart, it's the one time in their life they can really be selfish. You know, because this is a huge decision. Everybody's heard the deal. You know, next to your wife, you know, it's probably the biggest decision you're going to make. So take your time. And there is no, you know, I saw right now Marvin Jones' son, who was a 5-star, went to Georgia, you know, didn't go to Florida State. Guess where he's going now?
Yep.
He's going to Florida State. It's a little bit different right now, Craig, because you're talking about maybe a semester commitment or a year commitment at the most. So, but it's a fun time. You try to do everything you can to sell your product. I tell you, I'm excited for Baylor about this quarterback at Toledo. I happened to watch him a couple of times. He's dynamic. They got him a ball player there.
How much, and he has 1 year left, he's seasoned, he is a dual threat. He can run like the Dickens, maybe as fast as, I'm not talking RG3, but he has the ability to go. Seth Russell did too. But how much as a defensive coach does someone who does put pressure on the defense, not just scrambling or trying to get away, but he can run?
Quarterback friendly, Dave. Quarterback friendly. I mean, imagine this year if we'd have had a little bit more play extending at that position. And I think Chapin is good, but you know, I can remember watching, you know, all quarterbacks. You watched the Cowboy game the other day. The kid at Buffalo, they didn't do a great job passing, didn't have to, but he extends plays, and it does. I mean, it stresses the defense to the max. And this kid is a little bit like RG3. He's a rhythm thrower, and he has good ball placement, good, and the other. I mean, 88 touchdowns. I mean, that's a lot of dang touchdowns.
No kidding. No kidding. Hey, we appreciate you every time you can join us. We'll get back to the semifinals and look ahead next week, if you don't mind. We still have a couple more questions for you. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it.
Craig?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you because I've been meaning to, but haven't found the right time. And Patrick Mahomes, you guys faced off with him multiple times, and I don't think I've ever asked you before, but he had some massive performances against you guys, but also against a lot of other people. But did you have any sense, or I guess, what was it like preparing for him back then? And did you have any sense of just, hey, this might be the best football player in the world one day?
Oh, yeah. We knew how good he was. You know, Clem recruited him out of Chapel Hill, and we really liked him. And of course, Cliff did a great job recruiting him, getting him to Tech. But one of the things that stuck out on my mind, the best, you know, only the last year after Art was gone did they beat him. But every year we played them, the thing that always stuck out was his ability to, once again, to extend plays and throw on the run. I mean, his accuracy while being pressured was uncanny. And they had the little Grant kid that played at Miami. They had a huge tight end. I can't remember his name. Do you remember his name, David?
Yeah.
I think it was.
I want to think he was a part of the Campbell Award the 1 year. He was a part of a semifinalist.
Jason Morrow.
Who?
Jason Morrow.
Jason Morrow, yeah.
And they really, I always, when Sam worked for Cliff, I used to tell him, I said, if they'd only played a lick of defense, they could have been very similar to us at Baylor. And they just couldn't. It was that they never had a defense to play with him. But in answer to your question too, he was calm. He was very astute and nothing seemed to bother him. And you can see that now. It's carried on into the NFL and will go on to the Hall of Fame with him.
Last question I have for you is that have you driven a par 4 anytime lately with a birdie or an eagle putt?
Hey, when you come play with me, we're both going to have to go. I don't care if the wind's blowing or not. 2:30, we're going for the hole. Somebody said, my eyes have gotten better, my golf game got better, and now that I can hit, the driver stuff, all of a sudden my chip and my putting's gone to hell.
Yeah,
so
craziest game.
Tying it together, it's not easy, but it's fun trying.
I hope to see you down there very soon. Thank you, Phil. Appreciate your time, and we'll get you on next week to look ahead to the semis, if that's okay. We're not on Monday for Christmas, but in fact, we're off. My goodness,
yeah,
we're going to be off
next week. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we'll get him on January 2nd.
You just keep me abreast.
All right, we will. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate your time. Phil Bennett. Just love the segment with him. And we've even gotten super chat money whenever he's been on, and there's a reason, because he's that good.
Yeah, he's the best.
5:33 is the time. When we come back, just around the corner. Craig, you got something else you want to talk?
I wanted to mention, because I only remember Patrick really going off. I guess it's because that's the game that they won.
Yeah.
And that was also the end of that whole tenure, was that game at AT&T Stadium. Or was that AT&T? Yeah, that was AT&T Stadium.
Yeah.
And then they went and they won the bowl game, obviously. But, Rule was already hired. He was up in the booth for that game. And I just remember that part of it. But Patrick, in his 3 years, in a 48-46 loss to Baylor late in the year, 30 of 56 for 598 yards, 6 touchdowns, and an interception. That was...
What year was that, Craig?
In 2014. In 2015, in a 63-35 loss, he was only 32 of 50 for 415, 3 touchdowns, but he had a couple of picks in that one. So that was like easily his worst performance. And then in that game where he finally beat Baylor on the final game of the regular season, and Tech did not go bowling that year, because that's always the thing. Is like, yeah, Patrick Mahomes, you didn't even make a bowl game. See you, Cliff. But he was 30 of 46 for 586 and 6 touchdowns, no picks. Just ridiculous numbers. Yeah. Ridiculous. And he had other games where he had huge numbers, but it seemed like a couple of those games against Baylor, he just went crazy.
Yeah.
And especially that last one when they won, and all the writing was on the wall with what was happening there. But
Coach Bennett said that Randy Clemens recruited him. He was at Chapel. He was at White House High School. Craig was you did his games at White House High School. Yeah.
Was he ever committed anywhere else? He went to Tech. He was Tech the whole time.
Yeah. His father. Go ahead, Craig.
I didn't do his senior year because I'd come here at that point, but sophomore, junior years, and I remember he was kind of getting recruited, but not really at that point. And then
did people think he was like a baseball player?
Yeah.
He would have been a high.
But they thought that's what he was like. Started because of his dad. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how much that interrupted football coaches pursuing him, because after I left, maybe that final year, maybe it picked up a lot. But he was getting talked to, but I don't remember there being like heavy activity, and I don't remember him being mentioned a whole lot by a lot of people. But you can go look back on my tweets from like 2012 or something, 2011, and you'll see me tweeting about Patrick Mahomes, and he's still got the same, I believe, Twitter name as he did back then, and all his little buddies that were on that team. He had some really great receivers, but he was doing that for for Texas high school football week in and week out before he blew up, and then at Tech had some attention, but not nearly as much as he probably should have received, just because they weren't very good, and the rest is history. But yeah, I mean, he was not getting nearly as much of attention as I would have thought in hindsight, but obviously he got the attention that he needed, and he's where he's meant to be. But yeah, what a special player.
They had a pretty good run about 5 or 6 years before he got there, but then they went from 5-6 in Mahomes' last 2 years, 10-2 and 12-1, and puts up huge numbers in high school. His father, Pat, who was a baseball player for many teams, great high school player at Lindale, texted me a few times saying he'd love Baylor to get involved with him. And I guess Clements it did not work out, because usually they were on somebody pretty early and they stuck to that commitment, whoever it might have been. All right, when we come back, we'll have Paul's Top 5 just around the corner, but a couple of more stories to get to, college football, and this is 365 Sports.
Are you looking for a last-minute gift for the whiskey or craft beer fan in your life? Then you need to check out Riverbend Liquor and Wine. They've got 2 locations, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and, of course, downtown Waco, the new one. But check out Riverbend Liquor and Wine. If you especially, a nice bottle of craft bourbon is a great gift for a whiskey aficionado. And they have the best, especially when it comes to local Texas craft bourbons. They've got it all, whether it's Garrison Brothers, Balcones, Devil's River, you name it. If it's from Texas, they've got it, and they've got all the varieties and permutations there and all the different flavors. They have got some great stuff. Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Great customer service. Look, if you're heading out to a party, you need to jump into a place real quick, New Year's, whatever, you have to stop by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now in downtown Waco.
Ring in the new year with unbeatable savings on the new 2023 Ram trucks during a wrap-up-the-year sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Take advantage of this limited-time opportunity and start the new year in style. Shop our great selection in-store or online today.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor Alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor Alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor Alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com in White House, Texas, just outside of Tyler in East Texas. At another auction, Samantha, is gone. Aged Wagyu beef and so much more you have on your ranch. How did it go? And what is next?
So we had our Very Merry Beef auction. We tried doing one completely online this time, and it went really well. It lasted for over 3 days. We are planning another auction January 30th. This auction will be an in-person, online, also a live auction like we did the first time. You come out to the ranch, dinner is going to be provided. It'll be a variety of steaks, hamburger, sausage, tri-tip, brisket, roast, all of the different Wagyu cuts. But we still have online our family bundles, summer sausage. That's a huge hit this time of year. It's perfect to give to teachers or hostess guests or to have out on your charcuterie board for your Christmas dinner. We have those available online. Our last day for shipping is December 13th. That way we can make sure that you've got it there by TexasBeefHouse.com. Use your SICM10 code to get 10% off. So we just want to tell all all of our customers, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thank you so much for your continued support in the year of 2023, and we hope that you return to us in 2024.
And they will, repeat customers, because the product is amazing. Aged Wagyu beef, TexasBeefHouse.com, and this is 365 Sports.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Bowl games galore, including Western Kentucky's comeback today against Old Dominion. And I mentioned this earlier, but we didn't get too detailed into it. Texas Tech struggled a little bit early with Cal. And then they turned on the afterburners, ended up winning that game very comfortably. Nice win for Joey McGuire. Difference between 6 and 7, 7 and 6 is a win or a loss, but it's a winning season after the way they ended last year and after they got hammered in Austin to close out the year.
Yeah, it was a nice win for them. It started out poorly, but they rallied. Baron Morton looked really good in the game, and they did not meet their hype this year, obviously, but that doesn't mean that they were. I don't know if they were behind. They maybe just convinced people they were a little further ahead than they were. And so another bowl win is big for them. Moving on to the next year, they got those practices. They've been really doing well in the portal. They've been doing well in recruiting. So, I think the future's bright for Texas Tech. It just wasn't as bright as fast as I think they would have hoped.
Yeah, it was just a poor start. I mean, nothing other than that. It was just, didn't get off to the quick start that you wanted, but they overcame that relatively easily, and they dominated for 3 quarters. I think that was the best game. Joey McGuire might have even said in the postgame it was their most complete game that they played all season when you just look at what they were able to do on all sides of the football. And their defense is certainly a bright spot leaving that game and something they've been slowly but surely building up. And you definitely got to look at some of the future that you can get excited about in that game, and that's an area where you feel like there's room for improvement, and there's certainly signs pointing to that being a better team overall, just in general next year. But defensively, saw some good things as that continues to build. Offensively, you've got your kind of quarterback situation sort of cleared up. I mean, Baron Morton played pretty well. 27 of 43, 256, 3 TDs, an interception. Taj Brooks almost hit 100 yards, had the touchdown there at the end. And him coming back is just obviously a huge boon for you. Now you add in the fact that you're getting Micah Hudson to help out a wide receiver core that certainly could use some help. Although Coy Eakin, the young man from Stephenville, 100-yard game, touchdown, huge performance from him. So there's another young guy now that you can get excited about, and those are the kinds of performances here in the postseason that start to give you momentum heading into next year. So I think, going back to what McGuire said about the complete game, when you look at all the things that I just mentioned, and I only mentioned some highlights of Coy Eakin or just the defense with 6 sacks and Baron Morton playing a steady, solid game, or Taj Brooks, another near 100-yard game and another score, and him coming back. I mean, and you add in Hudson, it's year number 3, it's the 3rd offseason, and you've got the transfer portal gets that you're already getting to address wide receiver, to address O-line, some areas where you are in need of improvement, and things are, shaping up pretty nicely. They could have gone a much different direction had that first quarter lead or deficit held. But like I said, they dug out of that pretty well. And, that does erase some of the bad taste out of your mouth from that Texas beatdown, because that was a beatdown. And had you turned around and lost to Cal, then I think you kind of roll into the offseason at 6 and 7. And with those losses, back to back, going like, geez, what the heck was that? But the fact that you got into the postseason and you go and you win that game, and you finish above 500, I do think is meaningful. But it does make me wonder, what are the expectations for next season? I mean, what are those going to be? Is it okay to win 7 games again? Is it okay to just win 8 games like you did in year number 1? Or do you feel like now you need to, with everybody a year older, kind of bust through, and especially in a new Big 12 where there is no Oklahoma or Texas. Now, you didn't play Oklahoma this year. You got whooped by Texas. You beat both of them 2 seasons ago. With them out of the way, even though you beat them both 2 years ago, or I guess, a year ago, does that make it easier? Is that make expectations a little higher as opposed to if they were both back in the conference and everything was as usual? I don't know. But, to finish above 500 and win your bowl game, and he's 2-0 in bowl games now at this point, I think that's a great, piece of momentum to move into the offseason. So I think going into next year, it's going to be really curious of kind of how they tamper down the hype, because they were embracing it fully this past year, and then got into the season. They were like, well, maybe we were a little bit too hyped up, right?
Well, remember what Joey said? Did he actually ask his players? He said, hey, did I overestimate what I was telling you guys?
Yeah, I mean, they were fully confident, and that they weren't, like, hey, I believe that we're all, the hype's real and all that, and then got off to a slow start, obviously, with the Wyoming loss, the Oregon loss. But it was clear that they were a good team, and so I think that they, went from a situation where they were looking at not even making a bowl game to going and winning it. And so, I'm just curious now of kind of what you expect if you're a Texas Tech fan for year number 3.
Well,
when we get him on, we'll ask him. I would hope to do that right after the first of the year.
Now, look, the rosters, as we know, are completely different. But as far as the schedule for next year, it does work out for them in that, Arizona, Oklahoma State, and West Virginia are the only 3 conference foes they'll play that had a better record than them this year. Now, obviously, they've got Wazoo, who did not have a better record than them this year, and then North Texas. They also have them in non-conference along with Abilene Christian. But inside the conference, it's TCU, Iowa State. I guess Iowa State's better. I'm sorry, I forgot about them. But not more than a game or so better. They're right there in where they need to be,
I would think that you're not going to slow down the hype. You may not be supercharged as much. He didn't say anything after a game that might come back to bite him that was on film, because it absolutely did as soon as he said it against Texas in the game in Lubbock. I would think that based on Texas Tech fans that are in the chat or have been in touch when I've talked to them, they were disappointed this year. They really, when it got – and again, the Kansas win was what launched them to be able to get into the postseason or the playoffs or a bowl game. I think that, this year maybe here, a step here, and now I would think the expectations – and with Texas and Oklahoma leaving, those expectations get higher.
Yeah, and I don't want to start placing like, well, you better reach this or this, but I would think that 8 wins would be like kind of your baseline. And I would think maybe even that would be a little bit disappointing for some fans given the conference layout, the schedule, and what all you got coming back. But, I mean, it's so early. I think on the surface level, no matter what everybody else has done, like you've won 8, you've won 7. I think you want to win 8 again, and I think you want more than that. I think in year number 3, I think that you're expecting to compete for the Big 12. And I think with Micah Hudson coming in and joining all these returning players and, a defense that's growing and wreaking some havoc there in this final game, and obviously, a young quarterback and a solid running back. I think that there's reasons to believe that could be the case. So, it's going to be a fun offseason for them, a fun ending to what was otherwise, a very up and down kind of season. But shoot, trust 7-6 is better than 6-7.
Yeah.
And winning that final game is way better than getting blown out by Texas and then turning around and losing to Cal, who's, you obviously don't respect all that much because it's, the whole Pac-12 nose in the air, like you didn't want to lose to Cal as they close out their Pac campaign. So that was a good win and a good nice showing for the Big 12 in this conference bowl season.
I wish we had audio or video or at least pictures from inside the tour today of the Foster Pavilion, which will open up at the first of the year. But here's one of the notes from Chad Botherine, who's been a part of our pregame. That's a shot. It doesn't give you everything, but Chad put that up. And the Foster Pavilion, there was a media tour. I was not able to get to it. But I've been inside there, snuck inside there, just like was able to at one time going downtown to get something to eat, walk through some of the construction. It is, and there's a lot still to be done. There's going to be a lot still to be done as the work is in progress. But there's a picture of it today unveiled, at least to the media. They'll open up the first of the year.
Why did they have to open up the first of the year, or why did they want to open up first of the year?
They wanted to have like a close out the Farrell Center. They're going to be able to, everything's going to be fine game day operations, but there are some things that won't be there. Some amenities won't be there. The locker room will be fine for game days, but to host any kind of NCAA event, they'll do that in the Farrell Center for at least the spring if they get a chance to do that. Women's basketball might host a game or two. And because of just the way the locker rooms are yet not complete for what would be multiple teams.
So why open it up if it's not done?
I think that they wanted to grab a home court advantage, which especially noise wise, which they just don't have in the Farrell Center right now, and be able to capitalize on any energy that they have and what's going to be a really tough Big 12 season. But yeah, I kind of was wondering. I've wondered the same thing. Like, when just open it when it's done.
When you're coming down to the Y and you're like, well, we might not have everything finished. Like the walls aren't painted all the way, or they're still dry. And it's like,
it's not that.
No, I know. I'm just saying, if it's going to be in flux, like why not just wait and open it to start the next season?
I think they just wanted a break to start the new semester, and they'll play. By the way, they got their asses kicked by Michigan State on Saturday in Detroit. And now they go to New York City to play Duke.
Every time they didn't, they started out in the second half, they're down 28 at halftime, 45-17. They start out in the second half, and they scored in their first, three of their first 5 possessions. Says, okay, well, the problem with that is that's completely unsustainable. Like, you have to do that and then stop them and cut in their lead. They would have had to go on like a 32-0 run, essentially, to win the game, and that was just not going to happen.
Yep. Terrence Arsenault, one heck of a player at Houston, tore his Achilles. Saw Joseph Duarte with that note. Houston is, of course, good. They played A&M. Game was very, very tight, but Arsenault out. That's a big loss for Houston, who's obviously loaded. And the women beat Miami up in women's basketball. Great win for Nikki Collin and company, too. Let's see. I think we've hit everything. Everything. Craig, you said UCF and Utah playing this week in bowl, not each other, but playing in bowl games this week. Is that right?
Yep.
All right. Garrett, thank you very much. We'll come back with Paul Catalina's Top 5. This is 365 Sports.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5. Brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 teams in the portal so far. Obviously, some of this is quality over quantity. Some of it is quantity and an improvement of your overall talent level, although it's not deep. And then some is a little bit of both. Number 5. And look, I also want to make special mention of Texas Tech here. I need to see a couple more of their things fall down. And Texas only has 2 transfer commitments right now, but they're obviously those bear noticing. But if you're a Tech or Texas fan in the chat room, I'm giving you honorable mention right now and also acknowledging that this is not a complete list. This is just through the first couple weeks who's really made some news. Kentucky and Mark Stoops. Look, bringing in a former 5-star quarterback in Brock Vandegrift, who was just blocked at Georgia to play in Liam Cohen's offense is really good. Bringing in a really good running back and a senior in Chip Trainum to replace Ray Davis from Ohio State, really good. Bringing in Raymond Cottrell, a wide receiver from A&M with some upside. Really, really good there as well. He was a 4-star recruit, didn't play much at A&M, but he's there. And I think the best one that they have overall, Jamori Macklin coming in from North Texas to play in that offense with Liam Cohen. Really, really good for Kentucky. Not a lot of volume for the Wildcats so far, but what they have gotten is going to play for them and play a lot.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about the other guys like I know about Jamori Macklin, but a guy from that part of the country that's going back, I guess, sort of Midwest-ish and going to be in the SEC, which is a big jump from UNT, but he had a really good year for the Mean Green. Really solid player. Is a 4-star type of portal player, I believe is what his ranking got adjusted to. And Mark Stoops and company, again, it's anybody in the SEC or in the Big Ten, it's just the room gets more crowded next year. I know it does in the Big 12 as well, but it's a little bit different as Oklahoma and Texas rolling into town. And Kentucky's been able to find a nice little sweet spot, but with no divisions and just the mass there. I wonder where they sort of find themselves now moving forward. But yeah, so far they've gotten off to a nice start, and I really like that Macklin pickup.
Number 4, Arizona State. This one more about quantity than maybe like knocking you over. The best rated prospect they have is freshman wide receiver from USC, Rayleigh Brown, who's kind of a wide receiver running back slash kind of a guy. Kenny Dillingham obviously does well with those guys who have a lot of flex, but when they brought in another quarterback, Sam Levitt from Michigan State, but LaTerrence Welch from LSU and Cameron Harpole from San Diego State, Javon Robinson from Wazoo, Marquiston Douglas, a tight end at FSU that is a really good player. They've just got guys who are better than the ones they have on the roster. They did lose Jalen Conyers to Texas Tech, and I think that hurts a little bit, but it did replace him with 2 guys already. But I like what Kenny Dillingham is doing in that is a roster that they had to kind of pick bare, and he is going volume-wise and getting guys who are maybe not 4 and 5 stars right now, but they barely had 3 stars on the roster, and they're getting better players that are going to be able to compete better as they move into the Big 12.
Go follow Chris Karpman's Twitter feed. We've had him on many times, realignment lately as well, because of their success in recruiting, and it never ends. It's just one after another with what Dillingham and Arizona State are doing.
Yeah, I forgot to mention Joey Sua from Arkansas, a very good defensive lineman, Kamari Wilson from Florida, pretty decent safety as well. So they've got guys who are good. Like, again, this is not the roster that's going to win Arizona State the Big 12, but it's going to keep them probably from going 2-10. And they will probably improve next year.
Yeah, it seems like they touched on just about every position imaginable in the portal so far. I mean, bulking up everywhere you can. A couple tight ends. Address the line a little bit on offense and defense, safety, wide receivers. I mean, they're kind of all over the place. But it's interesting. I hadn't noticed this before. I don't know when it changed over because I don't look at these a lot. But just to try and keep track here, because I won't pretend like I know everybody that Arizona State's bringing in so far. I went to sort to find Arizona State, and I'm like, why they're not showing up here? And I go to the Pac-12, and there's just 2 teams listed. And I'm like, is that because they only have 2 team sites? And then I realized, oh, wait, look at the Big 12 link, and there they are. Yep. And that took me a second to I don't know when that officially changed over, but it is now. Like, they're now, for all intents and purposes, moving into the Big 12. So, they're the one that has the most questions to answer of the 4 that are rolling in. I mean, Arizona's coming off of a red-hot year, especially given recent years. Utah's Utah, and then Colorado with Dion. You know that they're already loading up pretty huge as well, which I'm sure Paul may or may not touch on. But they've got a lot of work, so we'll see how the Sun Devils come rolling into Big 12 country.
I may just touch on them as they are number 3 on the list.
There we go.
So Colorado has brought in 5 new offensive linemen. And Garrett, I'll ask you again like I did earlier today. How many new offensive linemen did they need at Colorado?
All they can get.
Yes, they needed at least 5 because they have a very good quarterback in Shadur Sanders who was pummeled down the stretch of the season so much that he was injured, and they need to keep him upright. They brought in 2 different quarterbacks, one from Vanderbilt, one from Kentucky. The one from Kentucky, Destin Wade, is part of the Wade twins. His brother is an edge rusher. Probably more valuable to them in the immediate future than is Destin Wade, who'll be one of the backup quarterbacks. But Will Shepard, wide receiver from Vanderbilt, is a nice pickup for them to go with the skill players that they already have. And again, they needed to get better up front. They've done that, getting players on that side of the ball, both sides of the ball. Plus, an interesting one I'm going to throw out there in Cordell Russell from TCU, who didn't really hit his potential at TCU, but he's from North Mesquite. An interesting player that
the Stallions,
if they can find a way to work him in, will be good.
They did get another defensive lineman commit today, but they lost Matthew Bedford, who had committed to them, a transfer. He now has committed to Oregon. So even if you're in the transfer portal, you can change your mind a couple of times, and that's what Bedford did today.
Colorado's added 15 already.
I think it's 16 now.
Well, yeah, but 15 is this
17.
morning.
It's 20.
As of this morning.
That's a crazy number to already have, and you wonder how high that goes. what is the ceiling on how many transfers? I mean, there's a lot of offensive linemen, as you pointed out, that are already a part of this mix, and rightfully so. Receivers too. I mean, they're kind of all over, but it's hard to not notice the particular emphasis on the offensive line and on the quarterback position there, where they've really gone heavy, and wide receiver too. So yeah, I mean they're a unique team because of their head coach with an interesting microscope on them. We saw how big and bright that was early on, and we saw how it just went away at a certain point. Everybody pretended like they weren't hyping them up early on in the season, right? But they'll get that offseason hype rolling, especially if they can, change up this offensive line. They may have a little something because Shador's a great player, man. I mean, Shador's really good, but he just had no protection this past year. So, yeah, I'm very interested in how they continue to retool and kind of the hype machine this offseason for Deion in year 2.
One of the guys they got today, by the way, is Houston defensive lineman Chidozie Nwankwa, who played quite a bit for them. He's a kid out of Richmond Foster High School who committed to Colorado after playing for Houston.
And you see Deion's already back into Texas loading up guys. I mean,
he's got a number of Texas guys already.
Yeah, a number of Texas guys. Number 2, Louisville. Look, Jeff Brom had to probably, they coached well above where everybody thought they would be this year and rolled through. But if I'm Jeff Brom and I'm looking at that ACC championship game, my goal is, okay, how do I get to that level that Florida State is on? Because they beat me without their quarterback, and the fourth quarter of that game, I had no shot to score. How do I change that in a game where this should have been the recipe for me to beat this team, and it wasn't? So how do you do that? Well, you load up on big-time athletes, which they have done. I'll point out 2 in particular. Wide receiver Colin Lacey, who had a great year at South Alabama. Ask Mike Gundy about him in particular. And then
Oklahoma State's defense coordinator,
and then one that is that was kind of a surprise to me. I thought he was going to have a bigger year the way that he kind of played last year. Ja'Cory Brooks at Alabama. He went in the portal. That's one that could be really a nice highlight for them if they get him going. But they have addressed every position of need: cornerback, defensive line, offensive line, including a player out of Harvard named Thor Griffith, a defensive lineman that was on the freaks list. And he is coming to Louisville. So Jeff Brom is making moves there with the Cardinals and trying to close that gap at the top of the ACC.
There's going to be so many Thors in about 10 more years from the MCU mania. I feel like there's at least one Thor, it feels like, in college football every year at this point. But Thor Rodoni, who used to be at Baylor, is who I think of as well. But, Tyler Shuck was an interesting pickup there at quarterback, and I think it's pretty clear where they feel like their needs are on offense. I mean, nearly the entire class is offensive. Linemen, Shuck at quarterback, wide receivers, tight ends, and I think there's a couple of defenders that are there. They had a good defense, but they're clearly trying to spruce up the offensive side of the football, and they're adding some numbers, that's for sure.
Now, with Tyler Shuck, I think they're probably going to have to add another quarterback just to be safe because he's not made it through an entire year unscathed. Number 1, and this should come as no surprise, right now, it's the self-proclaimed Portal King, Lane Kiffin. Although I wouldn't say he's necessarily the Portal King yet, but if he pulls this class off, especially if they add Walter Nolan, he will be at least for this year. But just today, they added Mississippi State cornerback DeCamerion Richardson, Juice Wells of South Carolina, 2 different players, Tyler Barrett and Tamarian McDonald from Tennessee. Princey Umanliman, who I'm never going to say that right, from Florida, who's an amazingly good player. Key Lawrence of Oklahoma. They have, I'm leaving somebody out, Jerquan Scott from Southern Miss. Lewis Moore of Indiana. They have just loaded up on players. And Chris Paul, a linebacker from Arkansas, is one of the highest ranked linebackers in the portal. And 4 of the top 13 JUCO players. Ole Miss is gunning for it right now. They're trying to win the SEC in 2024 and get in that college football playoff. And if they don't, that would be something, because this is a team that is looks like they're going to be loaded for bear.
Well, that would be something too, when there's 12 teams that are going to make it. So if you're not making it at that point, then what do you have to do, or what was the roadblock in front of you? How many other SEC teams were taking up spots, or how many Big Ten teams, or whoever? But they're going going for it, and I commend them for that. They're definitely going SEC heavy as well. I mean, if you look at their list of transfers, I mean, with the exception of a couple guys, it's all programs from the SEC that they're grabbing guys from. So that's just an interesting note that I picked up, and I include Oklahoma into that now at this point. But, yeah, I mean, there's a reason he's called the Portal King. Some of it's self-advertising, sure, but they also hit it heavy, and they're right there out in front right now, as you said and as you pointed out. So, yeah, they're going for it, and I'm excited to see what that looks like next season and what is going to be a very thick and crazy and heavy SEC race.
Garrett, did you get the last one I just sent you? Lane Kiffin's son his name's Juice. That's his Twitter feed. There's a picture of his dad on a front of a car, Grand Theft Portal. And his son goes, "Wait, Dad, what about me? Why am I not in the picture?" And Kiffin's response, "Stay off Twitter, son." So he's got that sense of humor. I know not everybody likes him, but he's pretty good. Follow at Lane_Kiffin on Twitter. Don't forget tonight at 10:30, 365 Sports Tonight, brought to you by GXG, your future and also current Baylor Student Athletes NIL Collective for Baylor Athletics. Go to BaylorBears.com/GXG for more information. Garrett Ross, thank you very much. Emery Winter working on 365 Sports. For Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak, all of our sponsors, back at it again tomorrow. I'm David Smoak. Good night, 365 Sports.